Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family, and we chose this one. This is episode 76, Bullitt, from 1968. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too, and this episode's brought to you by Ford, the 2020 Ford Mustang. Unparalleled performance. 6 available high-powered engine means that every 2020 Mustang comes with performance in its DNA. Shout out to Ford.
Shout out to Ford. Well, thank you so much, Ford. Especially, in a difficult time like this, I'm glad there are still companies willing to spend money on little podcasts like ours.
Yeah.
And give us both brand new Mustangs to, park in our driveway and just show off as we social distance from one another. Yeah, so as we mentioned, just in case, so before we get into anything, we put out a little bonus episode between all sorts out of sorts on dates in terms of release schedule. So so 2 weeks ago, we did our 2-lane blacktop episode. Then that Friday, we put out a bonus episode because they had delayed Fast and Furious 9 for a year, and we said we're no longer covering Bloodshot, we're going to cover Bullitt. Then we put out yesterday, as we're recording this, Too Fast, Too Furious. So this is the next episode in that line of succession. So, in case your podcatcher if you missed one of those episodes, there is a couple, those are the ones, so make sure you get the 2-lane blacktop. Make sure you get Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yep.
If you want to catch up on the Fast and Furious 9 news, you can. You don't have to listen to that. That was just sort of like a breaking news kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Here we are. After the break, we will be talking about Bullitt, but it's been crazy times. Joe, extracurricular activities. What have you been up to in your self-quarantining since we last did? I don't know what this segment's going to be.
I don't know either. I just want to say, though, first of all, I am thriving. Okay, this is probably the best time of my life. I've been training for this.
Let's not say it like that.
I'm saying personally, I've been training for this. I hate people. I hate leaving the house. It's great. Nobody's bothering me. Nobody's trying to come to see me. People don't want to come hang out. It's fabulous in that sense. Personally, for me and dealing with people, it is wonderful. So I haven't been doing much.
I just don't want to have a repeat Vanessa Hudgens situation on our hands where we get canceled because you say this is a good thing.
I didn't say it was a good thing. I didn't say, some people are going to die. My social distancing techniques are on point.
You've been self-imposing social distancing for 30 years now.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm enjoying. So we've been cooking. We made a lot of soups. We've been baking, just all kinds of cooking things. It's just fantastic. I get drunk. Nobody's bothering me. I don't need to wake up at a certain time. It doesn't matter when I'm hungover or not. I'm having a very good time right now, and I'm really enjoying it. I hope everybody else is having a fun at-home time. Oh, watching lots of trash TV and movies. So that's what I've been up to.
I feel like it's a very worrying time, even though I feel like I'm safe. I'm living not in the middle of nowhere, but I live not in a city, so I feel like I'm safe. I mean, you're on the outskirts of a city, but you're not at risk there.
I'm still going to the hospital and stuff. So
true. It's a troubling time just because as people are dying and as the global economy is collapsing slowly but surely. It's a weird time, and I have this weird sort of neurotic sense of guilt that I'm not doing I just feel anxious and antsy that I'm not doing things.
In what sense? You're not doing
my job? I still have my job. We were just talking about this before we started recording that my job is safe, but it's instead of having things to do all day because basically the world is on pause. I was working from home anyway, so I'm continuing that. Nothing.
Yeah, so it's jarring to you, right? This is a very weird thing that you're normally at home, but now you're I don't have to do anything at home.
I want to be doing things because I feel just to get my mind off of things and just to feel productive and feel helpful and useful. And I want before we started recording this, I had this hour-long chat with my boss about what to do next and all this different stuff. And that's going to give me purpose, at least for the foreseeable future, which is good.
Good.
Because I don't want to treat this as I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to play video games and watch movies, which I am because what else am I literally going to fill my day with? But at the same time, I want to be productive and constructive and creative and podcast and do work stuff and everything like that. It just feels there's nothing to do really, and so it's a weird time for someone who is a double alpha such as myself, where I'm trying to.
You're very used to self-motivating, working in a work-from-home environment, right? So
yes.
I get it. So the lack of structure is throwing you off. Whereas for me, I'm this is every day's a fucking Saturday. This is
Right.
incredible.
I don't want to make myself out to be a martyr here, but like I feel like the dumb things that we have lost, like going to the movies, in a way have hurt me more just because that was my escape from the
Oh,
same
for
thing.
sure. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, you're not like martyred in that. Yeah, it's just like a very enjoyable thing. Like you lost something very specific that you find very enjoyable that you do all the time. I get it.
Right. And I don't want to say, because, as people like are dying and losing their jobs and so many things are
Yeah.
uncertain and, there's so much fear, I don't want to be like, I can't go see Bloodshot in the theater is like a bad thing, but like
You
my
spend a lot of time at
escape.
theaters. Yeah.
Right. My escape is now just like walking around my neighborhood for an hour, and that's it. And like, I live alone with my cat, and she's just hanging out. We're just buds. But like, I have Facebook chat and stuff like that. But like, even though it's almost literally the same thing on my as a normal week, I've almost never felt more isolated just because
Mm-hmm.
I can't take that next step, and just it's a weird time, man. And
It's very weird. We're gonna have to get used to it.
we gotta get used to it because this is not changing anytime soon. And I feel like the more I read, the more I just scare myself, and I'm like, oh no. Like I want to keep a balance between realistic of like, oh, things are not going to go back to normal anytime soon, but I also don't want to think that. Like I don't want to have that on the brain because that's not helping anything. It's
Yeah,
hard
if you
to
just
juggle
keep
those two
reading the
different things.
news, that's why, dude, just gotta find some good trash TV to watch.
Well, that's the other. Like people are like, "Oh, I'm running out of things to watch." I'm like, "How are you running out of things to watch? Like this is my one opportunity to like catch up on things. Like I am crushing my backlog of TV. I've got my little list of
Good.
movies I'm gonna go through, and like I got so many things here. The free time eating up, that's not my issue at all. Like this is like, oh, I've been like in terms of your social distancing, like you've been preparing. Like I'm just like, oh, free time. I got this under control. I got my ordered lists and
Yeah,
everything. Like I'm good there. It's just everything else. I'm just like, oh no, like what happens now? And so
I'm always feeling reassured because all of the people that I work with, and I work with a lot of doctors, they're like skeptical, but they're optimistic. They're just cautionary, right? So
yeah,
that's good. They're not freaking out. That's like very comforting to me. I see a lot of emails from them and they're like, these are the plans we have in place. And, I see the ones for treating patients and stuff like that. They all have very serious, very succinct plans with redundancies and backups and stuff like that. That is actually calming me a lot and why part of the reason why I'm not as worried, right? Because I'm not getting my information from the news. I get a lot of it from them, and they're still very calm.
because what also like what's driving me crazier than anything else is like we have a mutual friend who did this, but it's not just her, it's everyone. It's like, oh, my neighbor's cousin's son works for the government and like they're saying that this is gonna happen. It's like it's copy pasta. Like it's just like it's the same it's the
Chainmail.
nonsense.
It's
Yeah, it's
chainmail.
just a new version.
Fear.
We're not helping anything by just being like, we're going on governmental lockdown for 15 days starting Sunday. Like, go out now. Like, that's just instilling panic. And, like,
Yeah.
just don't panic.
Don't panic. No. I went to the store today. I got some extra stuff that I needed. Also, I was thinking about this when I was there earlier. Okay, obviously, if you're listening, you know about the whole toilet paper shortage thing going on there. Does everybody else in the world only buy like one roll of toilet paper at a time?
When I buy toilet paper, I buy like a
A
24
gigantic
pack
pack,
and I
right?
buy it 9 months later and I'm good for, you know what I mean? Like, I
That's what I'm
have
saying.
probably 8 or 10 rolls here. Like, I'm good for months and months and months.
This is the other thing I said. I was like, look, I live in a house with Rachel where like she uses like a lot more toilet paper than I do, right? Because like that's just how it works. I'm like, if I was a single dude, like a bachelor, like I would need like two rolls before like the end of the war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like two rolls can last me like months. I don't get it, man. I was like, does everybody else live like I know people live paycheck to paycheck, but is everybody else living roll to roll in their
I
house
guess
that they
so.
it was so confusing to me. I was like, man, I'd never really thought about this before. But like, I haven't been sweating the toilet paper thing because I was like, oh, I got like 7 rolls. Like, we're good for a couple weeks. Like, it's not that big
Just
of a
hide
deal.
hide one from Rachel, and that can be yours, and she can have the other 6, and you're still good for a month.
And then even if I do use it, it's like 6 squares max. Like how much toilet paper are people going through? I don't get
I
it.
don't know, man.
It's crazy.
I guess our new thing is that instead of going to the movies here in this segment, when NBC Universal is dropping things VOD, I mean, I guess that's the new normal. Like, I'm waiting. Like, they have not announced it yet, but like, Bloodshot's got to be following in its footsteps. Like,
Oh, it's gonna be close.
we're still
Yeah.
doing the thing where movies that are not out yet that theoretically will make $1 billion are getting delayed because they don't want to eat the cost there. But stuff that's
Yeah.
already in theaters that basically it's like, oh, we're done,
Nobody's
we're
gonna see
cooked.
this now. Yeah.
As AMC and Regal and Alamo and some other ones are just closing all their chains for at least, a couple weeks, if not a month or more. The Hunt and The Invisible Man and Emma and
Mm-hmm.
Trolls and like all these things are going to be either available now or soon or whatever. Bloodshot, we said don't go. I know that Wes went because Wes is a rebellious young scamp. do not risk your health. Don't go see movies. Even though now I don't think you can see a movie. Like I think everything's closed anyway. But
Yeah.
it's done. Like there's no, it's not going to make more money at the box
No,
office. So like
it's definitely
while
not.
it's on people's minds, while the marketing is still out there,
While you did promo for it, yeah.
drop it. Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I think that's a fun thing about this, actually. We were talking about this. We were talking about this in one of our groups about the benefits of seeing a movie in a theaters versus seeing it at home.
Yep.
There's a lot of benefits to seeing in a theater. I like seeing movies in a theater, but I also like watching movies at home. This will be eye-opening, and I think there's a lot of movies that really probably don't need to be in a theater, and that a lot of movies would do better if they just went straight to VOD. Like we're seeing this with Netflix releases and stuff like that. So like I hope that it inspires, production companies to, maybe try this out a little bit. Make some like lower budget movies that like don't really show up in a theater and like come out and you're like, okay, this is cool.
Well, I think that's what we've seen over the past decade or so is that there's the $200 million movies and there's movies that cost $1 million or less, but there's that middle ground that is basically dying. Like the movies that cost like 5 to 20 basically don't exist anymore because to your point, either stuff
Yeah.
gets dumped on Netflix or stuff is like an Avengers movie, right? And that
Yep.
middle ground is already dead. But there are movies like Emma, like The Invisible Man, like a lot of what Blumhouse is doing. Like Blumhouse is a fascinating company, and not to make this into an entire podcast about the marketing and development of movies, but like Blumhouse has basically this strategy where they make like they're like, okay, we're going to spend $1 million on 20 different movies, and one of these movies is going to make $100 million, and like we're just set from that. And like even if 19 movies flop, they have a good enough track record and their talent and their development or whatever is so good that one of those movies is going to propel them forward for another year. And like it's a fascinating
That's
way.
awesome.
There's
Yeah.
been some really interesting stuff. And so like those kind of movies, I think the issue putting those on VOD or whatever is that people don't know where to look. I feel like because we are so fragmented in terms of streaming, there needs to be some kind of like almost like a
Rotten
what's
Tomatoes.
on tonight or whatever. Like what's the new release, whatever.
Yeah.
Like maybe an IMDb or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want going back to what you said a couple minutes ago, I don't want movie theaters to go out of business. I think that they play a vital role. I obviously love going to the movies more
I
than most
agree.
people, but I also think that the upside, and this is a very, very slim silver lining in an otherwise turd-filled year and situation and development, is that I think that this is going to make people address antiquated business structures that
For
have
sure.
carried the same, like, we've done it this way because we've always done it this way. And I feel like movie theaters have been hanging on. They've been trying all these different things, whether it's Movie Pass or A-List or whatever, bigger screens, louder screens, whatever. They've been trying to stave off the inevitable. And I feel like now that there's not, say there's 6 months without movie theaters, right? Like
They're gonna have to figure some shit out.
you're
Yeah.
either going to delay everything and then it's going to be like nothing but blockbusters, which is going to be like a weird thing anyway. And then like they're all going to lose money that way. Because like if you and Rachel like, I'm only going to see one movie this month, right? You have to choose between like 8 huge movies. Like you're not going to go see like just knowing.
No, I'm just gonna be like, I'll wait for the rest of them. Yeah.
Exactly. And so like you're going to lose money that way too. So like take advantage of it somehow, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting time.
And that's there's industries all over the place that are like that. So
Oh, for sure.
I feel bad for small businesses and people who are my friend's a wedding photographer, and she said that like all of her weddings have gotten canceled or postponed.
Yep.
And like, what do you do? Like, there's literally nothing you can do. And like,
No.
hopefully you're in a place where you can sort of weather that storm, and her husband works and everything. But like, man, oh man, it's tough to
rough.
be on your own in the situation.
I agree. I'm really nervous for people like that, and I hope that everybody pulls together and helps each other, and we all do the right thing.
Like like when there's like a hurricane or something, they're like, go donate blood, go give money here, go do
Yep.
this. Like there's like that bullet list. I feel like right now there's none of that. I feel like it's just don't go outside. It's like things don't do, right? Like it's not things
Yes.
to do. It's just like don't do this, don't
Well,
do
no,
that.
they've-
And
they've
like they're all
started
smart,
requesting
but it's
blood
like
and stuff.
I want to be like how can I help? Because like I have not that I want to invite strangers in here, but like if shit goes really wrong, I have a house to myself. Like friends could stay here, or I don't know how, but I feel like I want to do more, and like I don't know where to begin.
They're definitely having trouble getting blood, so if you do want to donate blood, I know that at least Yale's asking for a ton of blood donations, so that's one thing to do. Yeah, but you can do all kinds of things like that. Go help stock somewhere, soup kitchen stuffs, all that stuff needs help. Like,
Yeah.
if you have free time, I was going to say this earlier when you were like, oh, I feel like I need to do more, and I was like, if you felt like you needed to do socially more, like, communicative things, right, like, community building things, I'm sure you can find something to do and help. Kick in your little part, it'll be something dumb and small, but, you'll feel good about it. At least.
Yeah, we're doing, I do think, and I don't want to, make what we're doing here sound more important than it is, because we are just talking about Fast and Furious movies on repeat forever. But I think that
Yes.
there's a value and a credit to the normalcy of doing things like this, that like to the couple hundred people or whatever who listen to
For
this
sure.
podcast, like
Yep.
in a world filled with chaos, I think, and this is going back to what I've said in terms of running the network from the beginning, like the only thing I care about is making sure you hit your deadlines, because I think that people really care and really value and really cherish having that consistency. And whether you're a show
Mm-hmm.
with 10 listeners or millions of listeners, every Tuesday morning or every Monday night or whatever, there's gonna be a new episode of this, and like it's just dumb nonsense where we're babbling about Steve McQueen for 2 hours, right? And like Roman and Tyrese or whatever. But like we're doing something small and good here, and I'm just happy that people are still out there and listening and writing in
Same.
and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and we'll keep doing it until shit really breaks.
Yeah,
So we'll be here.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I hope we get a lot more emails because people are just gonna be like at home bored all the time.
Yeah, basically.
Right? Write in more emails. Family@cageclub.me. We'll read them.
All right, and speaking of, actually, first we have a Patreon page on the show, patreon.com/2fast2forever. Also, we know that, like, if you're concerned about your financials, don't give us money. We're fine.
Yeah,
Like, we're
please
just
don't. We'll be okay.
we're just
I
this money's
promise.
sitting in a bank account that we're not really spending. Like, if you need to cancel or if you want to suspend or whatever, we get
Nobody's
it.
gonna judge you. Yep.
With that said, shout out to Cassie Wilson, Jake Freer, Ben Milliman, Nick Burris, Alex Ellenin, and Justin Kleinman, all for supporting us over there. Thank you so much at the $5 level or above. If you do want to vote, cast your vote in this lap. If you want to help us pick a thing to watch, whatever, 2fast2forever.com. Go do that thing over there. Actually, I've not checked our reviews in a while. Let's see if there's a new review, because it doesn't cost money,
Maybe
Joe.
a review. It does not.
Leaving us a nice review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
We still have no new reviews.
Hopefully people find us while they're bunkered down, right? Somebody's gonna be like, I just watched all these Fast and the Furious movies over and over again. Be like, but I still want more content. And then like we find like one person that listens and they're like,
Boy, do we.
yes. Be like a little glimmer of hope. That person would have like the best day ever. Well, I mean,
Yep.
or the worst day ever if they hate us, but
One or the other. I do not know. I truly do not know.
they would be excited.
Yes.
They would be excited for 35 seconds when they realize it existed, right? Like at
People
least
like
that.
this, and I still don't fully understand why, but I also do appreciate it.
Yeah.
No new reviews, 21 ratings, all 5 stars. Go to Apple Podcasts, please. Leave us a good rating review. Whatever you want to do. Thank you so very much. But Joe, mailbag, you mentioned earlier, family@cageclub.me. We got 5
Yes.
emails.
5 emails. Okay, cool.
So here's what's going on.
I feel like when was the last time we recorded? Was it a long time ago?
It was a week ago.
Okay, I'm so lost track of days.
Because today we're recording on Wednesday, and I was like, when did I do that thing? I was like, Monday. I was like, shit, like Monday was forever ago. Like,
Yeah.
it feels, time is no longer a flat circle. Time is just
no-
like, it's stretched out.
It's an endless runway like in Fast and the Furious 6.
I guess so. Yeah, there's no end in sight.
There's no end in sight, but we're just on the runway just going 100 miles an hour the whole time, just waiting.
So we've got the first couple emails are from people who joined us for our family watch party, sort of
Oh,
writing in
cool.
about that. First up from
Oh.
Justin Kleinman. He says,
What's up,
really
Justin?
enjoyed the watch once I got past that weird surrealism when I signed in without realizing it was a real chat. Anyway, really fun, and I can't wait to do it again.
This was actually really funny. So Justin's referencing when he signed into the chat, we were like, hey, Justin. And and I never thought about it from the other perspective, right? Because like the only thing that I listen to is us. So like we've already talked about it. He was like, it's just very weird that like I always hear your voices, but then I'm included in the conversation for once. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a very weird thing. I didn't even think about it. Like I never saw it like that. So Justin was like, this is so strange that I heard you guys talking to me.
Yeah.
And it was really funny to me.
It is weird to just be part of the podcast, essentially, that
Yeah.
we're not recording.
Exactly.
He says, doing the character quiz was great. I'd announce who I got, but to paraphrase Dom, what happened during that quiz was just for me. He says, just wanted to update and apologize for ragging on you about doing a fantasy draft in February. Ours is coming up on the 21st, and 14 of the 16 of us are supposed to be traveling to Chicago for it. Corona's probably putting a stop to all that. Looks like you were the smart ones later, Justin.
Oh, he's right. Well, I don't think either of you are going to be smart or dumb about it because for right now, there's no baseball either. So it doesn't really matter when you drafted.
We've been running through a lot of different questions in our league about, like, if there is no season, do we redraft? If there is no season, how do keepers work? How do the rules that we implemented for this year or for next year? Like, we're going to figure that out.
I'm
know.
3 days into my hockey playoffs.
Well, I mean,
And-
you were first in the regular season. You're just gonna be like You're just gonna be like the Premier League, right? You won the regular season. You're the
I
champ.
hope. I would love that. My friends are like, "What the fuck are we gonna do if this season ends?" And I'm in first and the commissioner, so it's like I really can't decide, guys. Like I need to let you pick because what do you want
Because no matter how we slice it, I win. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I can't be like, well, this is what we're gonna do, or like even suggest a way to do it because I'm like, sorry, like
Yep.
I'm just for right now we're just in limbo. We're just
Yeah.
gonna wait it out and see what happens.
I've been on the bandwagon. I feel like this is a very depressing bandwagon to be on, but I'm just assuming that we're going to have no baseball at all. And so people are like, oh, it's going to be, we're delaying by 2 weeks. Oh, it's going to be May. It's
Truncated.
going to be end of May. It's going to be July 1st or whatever. I'm just like, I'm just assuming I'm bracing myself for the worst. No baseball. And then if there is baseball, cool. Like it's a positive come up for that. But
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I
You'll
don't
be
want to psych
surprised and
myself up
happy.
for like July 1st baseball and then like have there be no baseball. Like it's a
Yep.
weird time. The depressing thing in this regard, and I think we talked about this on Facebook, you and me, is that for Olympians it's an Olympic year, and for college
This
athletes like
sucks.
seniors March
Yes.
Madness, and like athletes who are in their prime, and like Ronald Acuna, Mike Trout, like baseball players who are like gonna put up crazy stats this year, or like the Bucks had a chance at the Bulls all-time win-loss record. Like all these different things aren't gonna happen, and it's
We'll just never
in the
know.
grand scheme of things irrelevant, but
Mm-hmm.
also sucks.
It really does. That's yeah. I was thinking about Olympians because, like, your Olympic window is small, right? Because it's
Hmm.
every 4 years. Like, you have to be in a prime age at the right time. That was training hard. For a lot of these guys, it's like you get one shot, right? Like that's it.
Oh boy. All right. Next email from Jenny McMullen, subject line watch party. She says, "Hi guys, I've been thinking all week that I should write in about the watch party. Hope you get this in time for episode 75. We did not, but this is for 76, so you're all good there.
Yes.
It was really cool getting to talk to you guys and listen when I had it muted due to my coughing. Hope you're feeling better. I was able to watch a few parts of the movie." She says the rat scene, shout out Linny,
Mm.
didn't seem nearly as bad this time. Maybe because of the lack of sound or the what kind of room is it discussion, which I forgot to say that like we were like,
Oh
what
yeah.
room is this? Like where are they in
Because
this
in the
club? Like
club,
it's way too big.
it's way too big. It's like also like, but it's not like they take them in the back, so it's not like a VIP room because there's not like music there. You can't see the stage or like anything. It's not a champagne room because it's not a strip club, right? So yeah. So we were discussing very deeply in Too Fast what this room was that the rat scene is in. It's not an office, right? Because there's no like office things. It's just very
And I was trying to
strange.
figure out what kind of room it is in real life, like what they repurposed to be this room. And my best guess is that it's like an entryway to some kind of fancy restaurant, like just kind of like a grand
A
lobby, because
lobby.
like
Yeah.
it's ornate, but it's too big for any other purpose, and like it doesn't feel like it could suit any. Like it's just a weird, whatever the opposite of like a multi-purpose room. Like it's not a single-purpose room; it's just like a no-purpose room. Like why are you so decorative, and why are you
So
so
big.
specifically whatever you are? And I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, it did. You know what? Now that you say it, it kind of looks like a repurposed entrance to like an Olive Garden or something, right? There's like a lot of like fake ornateness, which is like very Miami, but yeah, it has like arches and shit. Like we were like, yeah, we got really hung up on like what this room is supposed to be.
Also enjoyed the lively debate over how she entered the houseboat, which we're also trying to figure out whether Ava Mendez woke up on the boat, if she had showered on the boat, if she came
But
in,
she's wet.
how she got out. We still, you and I did
Why is
not
she
agree on
wet?
that, which we'll have to wait, 100 and something episodes till we get to that part in the minute and, go from
We
there.
can really.
Also, by the way, don't want to build it up too much, but the minute this episode is it's an all-timer tonight. I can tell you that much.
It actually begins and ends on two really great notes. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Jenny says we got into a fender bender on Thursday. Oh no.
Oh
When
no,
someone in
that
a
sucks.
pickup crossed into my lane on a 2-lane freeway on ramp.
Oh, I hope you're okay. I hope the
I hope
car's
so too. She
okay.
says it dented my rear driver's side fender, but I'm okay, and it's all been handled with
Perfect.
the other driver. I had to drive my
Awesome.
husband's older Jetta with a manual transmission to work so we could get estimates. She says weird that you have to press down on the shifter and go up into first to reverse. It's a VW thing apparently. See,
Yes. Oh, so Audi's and Porsche has this too. In most cars, you're like up and left is first, right? Down a second, and reverse is far right and up, right? One, two, three, four, five, down. No, far right and down. But in like the German cars, like Porsches, Audi, and stuff like that, the reverse is like all the way to the left, and then like you push down and go up. So it's kind of near first gear, and it's really confusing if you're not used to it.
just reminds me of that kind of like that gotcha question. Is like, look at this diagram. What's the missing letter, or what's the missing character, or whatever? And it's like it's supposed to be an R, right? Instead of like this, like the
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People are like, oh,
R.
it's 6. It's not 6.
No, it's
You
not six gears
dumb
reverse.
idiot.
Yeah, exactly. But this would be like R and then one, two, three, four, five, six, or one, two, three, four, five. Sorry.
She says, see, I just never know when I'm going to have to drive one. Hope you stay safe with all your traveling later, Jenny. Well, no traveling. Staying. She wrote this on the 14th. I mean, this was only written 4 days ago, and yet everything
Yeah.
has changed in 4 days, right? So
Yep. It
Crazy.
has.
But yeah, no one's going anywhere. I have a trip planned for the end of May that probably won't happen. I don't know. I was gonna put like here's the thing. Here's a question for you. I want to get your take
What?
on air. Is
Go
every
ahead.
year I have a barbecue or two, and I was thinking about putting on Facebook a barbecue because I was planning a barbecue for the week after Memorial Day, which I
Oh,
don't know if we're going to be able to have that.
yeah.
But do you think it would be a good thing or is it tasteless? Because I want to sort of word it
I
like
think it's a good thing,
because
actually.
I think people need
It's
things to look forward
optimistic.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's optimistic and it's far enough away that it's not like pushing it. It's joyous to be like it's hopeful, right? That this is past by then. I like it. Yeah, I wouldn't be. I mean, if you're as long as you're not like Corona over party, like
No, right. I am going to call it my social distancing barbecue though, and we can all just be 6 feet apart from each other
what
and all
about
be have
social
a good time.
gathering barbecue?
Oh, social undistancing.
Social undistancing, closing the gap barbecue.
Do you know how many orgies there are probably going to be? Like, oh, now that we can be close to each other, not my barbecue, of course, but let's get on top of each other.
I'm sure that the swingers are just itching in their houses right now because everybody's home, right? Nobody's at work. But
Well,
at
they're
the
probably
same
all
time,
I would guess they're maybe all bunkered down together. It's like the
I
ultimate
don't
key
think
party.
so. I
I don't
guess. I
know.
mean, there's different grades of everything. I'm sure that there's a bunch of swingers that are like in a community of friends, and I'm sure that there's some that just like meet up randomly. I'm not part of that community, so I really don't know. But I
I don't
guess that
know.
there's a taste for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jenny, for writing in. I'm glad that you are okay.
I'm
That your
glad you
car is
joined.
okay. You're gonna get better.
Yeah, and thanks for joining the watch party. We had a lot of fun. I'm glad that you came. I'm glad that Justin came. I'm glad that Jason came, and it was a lot of fun for me. And I hope that we can do another one. I hope that you guys join again. It was
Yeah.
because it was a good time.
Nick sends in 2 emails. One is a car picture we will save for a future episode. Then he
Cool.
says, "We are in too deep. No turning back. Those satisfactions are permanent."
Ooh.
What is that from?
Oh no, look it up.
I don't know. I googled it. I can't. I don't know. Maybe a King Dre song, "In Too Deep." Although it doesn't seem like it's verbatim. I don't know.
Okay.
Nick, let us know.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about the Fast and Furious minute here. He says, "Well, first off, that's so Brian moment. He could care less on the car because it's not his. Plus, when he gets arrested, they say they want realism and never know who's watching. But he did not get his Miranda rights.
Oh, very good point.
Yeah, Bilkins and Muse did not, or Tanner and Muse did not Miranda him. So
Yeah, they
oof.
just cuff him.
He says, talking about sports, I'm a Bucks fan. Well, congratulations on Tom Brady. And
Oh
my
yeah.
wife likes Duke's men's basketball.
Or was he talking about Milwaukee Bucks?
Bucs. I don't know. Maybe Buccaneers, maybe Milwaukee Bucks. I don't
If
know.
it's Buccaneers, yeah, congrats on Tom Brady, man.
And if it's
There.
Milwaukee Bucks, congratulations on Giannis.
Yeah, and if it's the Buccaneers, congratulations because you're about to get AB too. I'm sure it's coming.
He says, love Tulane, especially the sound, Tulane Blacktop. He says, I play
Yes.
racing and driving games like that, turn the music down so I can hear the rumble.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like that.
And then he says that his parents have a 39 Ford. The blue one he sent. Oh, I might have just spoiled the car he sent. Oh, I think we've guessed this before. I think the car picture he sent in actually, I'm going to maybe spoil this for you, but I think we've guessed this one before. I was like, this car looks familiar. But
Okay.
hold on, I'm putting this in the chat right now.
Should I open it or no?
No, open it. I'm sorry, because I think we've done this car before.
I think we have too. I
We've
think he
guessed
sent
that one.
us
I
it
think
in.
he sent that in before. He says,
Yeah.
because he's talking about his 39 Ford, the blue one he sent doesn't have a heater either. The heaters heat up the inside. The wheels that are on the 55 in the movie are the same one on Droopy. That's from the 39 Ford's name on the back, the American Racing 200S. He says, anyway, make it 3 yards, motherfucker, and we'll have an automobile race. Love this lap, LOL.
I love that line. That line is so good. And I just saw like one of my friends on Facebook posted like while you're hunkered down, watch these 7 car movies that you might not know about. And the picture was Two-Lane Blacktop. And I was like, well, we just watched Two-Lane Blacktop. I'll check out the rest of these in this list.
What else was on that list? Anything that we're covering this lap? Do you remember?
Let me look it up, actually. Let me look at this list and see if there's anything else
Well, I
cool
think
on
it's
here.
cool, though, as you're looking that up. I think it's cool
Okay.
that Nick sent in that car picture a while ago. Maybe that's why he likes Two-Lane Blacktop, or maybe that's part of the
It
reason why
makes
he
so
likes
much
Two-Lane
sense.
Blacktop, because, his family car, the awesome, badass older car that he has actual physical similarities in terms of parts, in terms of look and feel and whatever,
Yeah.
to the car in the movie, which is very cool.
7 lesser-known car movies you need to binge watch while you're hunkered down. 1 is The Racers, 1955. 2, Thunder Road, 1958. Speedway, 1968. Winning, 1969. Two-Lane Blacktop, 71. Greased Lightning, 77. Greased Lightning. Does that...
I think it's unrelated to Travolta.
Yeah, okay. And The World's Fastest Indian, 2005.
Huh, I don't think I've ever heard of any of those.
That's what I'm saying. This might be a good list to have to go through. Again, it says like it like has a list at the top. It's like Fast and Furious, Bullitt, American Graffiti, Death Proof, Italian Job, both versions. It like talks about like these are like the big ones, right? But
Right.
then yeah, Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run. So yeah, maybe we'll have to check these out.
Very, very cool. Our last email today, Joe, is from Mr. Wes Hampton. Too Fast, Too Furious. What up, fam?
What up, Wes?
Says, love the episode with Nate. I've already said it many times, so won't harp on it, but he's got a great voice for podcasting and great energy. Love his enthusiasm and his unique perspective on 2F2F and Roman. Plus, he shouted out Jimmy the Mechanic a few times, and I have an inexplicable connection to that character. Here are my new
Yeah,
episode observations.
cool.
Congratulations, boys. This is one of the few times you've changed my mind on something about the series. I like your theory
Ah,
about the natural evolution of race wars and how Dom and his crew might have actually started it as just a weekend hangout and then it morphed into something more organized.
yeah, because we've been talking about this. Yes, I think that that's what it is. I think that that's Wes was saying. Maybe he thought it was something a little bit different, but things evolve. So
He says, however, you will not convince me that Hector is working for Dom. You're not quite there in the minute, but Hector is surrounded by civics, so it makes perfect sense that he would be buying the parts to outfit his own crew for race wars rather than Dom rebuilding his cars for, quote, one last job. Hector drives a Civic. There are Civics all over the club by his garage. Brian finds 3 Civics in his garage being worked on. Brian even tells Dom that Hector is going to be running 3 Civics at Race Wars and lists all the stuff he bought. I think this is a classic case of us putting more thought into it than the writer and director anyone thought ever would. I doubt they ever thought about how Dom got the parts for his cars, but if he's really as careful as they say, probably ordered his heist parts from a bunch of different places. LA's a big city and is decentralizing his build to make it harder to track him. I get all that, but I think what we were saying about Brian listing the parts, we were saying part of the theory was that there are essentially 6 Civics, right? Like there's Hector's 3, there's Dom's 3, kind of.
that was
right?
one of the theories. That's one
Yeah.
of the theories. Yeah, it's interesting. We're gonna have to play it out through the minute and think about it a little bit more. We need more Hector to kind of get through that and think about it.
Right.
I like dragging it along as we do the minutes. It makes it more fun. So
Yeah. As we get further in the movie, I don't get worried, but in 60 episodes or whatever, and be like, how do we talk about this movie with a guest? Like, we have to have a guest be like, please, literally anything you want to talk about, because we have dissected this movie any which way. You know what I mean? Just I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to talk about this
Yeah.
movie after we finish the minute, but we'll get there when we get there.
we'll get there when we get there. Yeah,
Nothing but time, and then we'll figure it out when we get there.
true.
He says, Nate brought up franchise crossovers. I read comics on occasion. Crossovers are fun, especially when it's across companies, because there's always some weird dimensional portal that brings the franchises together in a weird way, and oftentimes the characters pair up with their counterparts or get mashed up. He says Turtles and Ghostbusters did it.
I didn't know this actually.
Turtles and Batman did it, and the Batman villains got turned into mutant animals, non-canon. And right now, Turtles and the Power Rangers are in the midst of a crossover event.
That's cool.
Shredder got the damn Green Ranger powers. Imagine that with FNF and the MCU. Okay, actually, I'm going to start thinking about this right now, and maybe you can chime in with your own ideas. But who would the FNF characters mash up or pair up with? So here's a list.
He already has a list
So he has a list. So who do you think? So I'll say a person, then you can think.
of their MCU
Let me know if
character.
you have someone in the MCU. Okay. So
Okay.
he first says Dom. So who do you think Dom would get matched up with?
He would either be Star Lord or like the Hulk.
Okay, so he says Iron Man or Cap because they're the leaders, but
Fair.
Dom has
That's a
an
good
anger
point.
problem, so Hulk seems like a natural fit.
Yeah,
I don't know that I would go Star-Lord. I see where you're going with that.
maybe like Brian's more of a Star Lord kind of thing.
Like the leader of his own little crew. I guess we'll get to that. I don't know.
Okay,
he
go
said,
ahead.
I think Hulk makes sense. I also
makes
think
sense.
Iron Man kind of makes sense. I think Cap is too goody-goody. Like Dom is not that.
Yeah, Iron Man's a good one. I like that. That's a very good one.
Next on his list is Hobbs. Who do you think Hobbs would be? And I think Wes's is perfect. I don't think that there's a better
What is it? I don't know.
Cap. He says Cap because of course he would. He is Captain
Yeah.
America, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Letty. Who do you think Letty would be? This is kind of a deeper cut. I mean,
Ooh.
she's been in a handful of movies. She's got a badass part in Endgame.
would
But who do you think Letty would be?
The green one or Black Widow?
Who's the green one? The green one from Guardians?
Yeah.
He says Valkyrie from Thor.
Oh, also a good one. You need somebody that plays on on the edge a little bit. Gamora, because she was kind of a thief.
Yeah.
I think Letty needs to have a little bit of criminal in her.
So one thing that he does not dive into, I don't think, is Guardians at all. So I think that you're building up the Guardians family, which I think also makes sense because they are a found family, just like ours
Yes.
is a found family. It feels like
Yep.
the Avengers is a team, but the Guardians
Yep.
is a family, and I think that might make a little bit more sense.
I
So
agree.
That also, I guess, limits it more because there's only 5 of them. But I was gonna say, Wes, write in who you think Guardians wise, but almost by process of elimination, there's not really, you can't do much with that. So, but
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna keep going.
Okay.
Giselle.
Giselle. Has to be Black Widow, right?
Yep, he says because
Yeah.
she's already on that level without superpowers. I'm gonna say, not Marvel, but she's got to be Wonder Woman, of course.
Ah,
Mia,
true.
who do you think Mia is?
Mia's like Hawkeye's wife.
Oh, well, that's one way of going at it. So Linda Cardellini from Freaks and Geeks, you say. He says Mia would be Captain Marvel, which makes me happy because he says because somehow she's probably secretly the most powerful of all the crew. Plus,
Ah.
she's the mom of the crew. I think, Captain Marvel just like ultimate. Plus, I love Brie Larson, of course, and so, that
I
makes me
love
happy
Brie
in all sorts of
Larson.
ways.
Yeah.
Han, who do you think Han is?
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't really. This feels like a personal pick on Wes's part. I don't know that I necessarily agree with him here, but
I would pick someone who's literally like a chameleon, like a shapeshifter. Do we have one of these in MCU?
X-Men is now owned by them, so I guess Mystique. But it's not really X-Men's not really in this world yet.
Yeah. Maybe I would say something like Ant-Man.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
You know what I mean?
Size shifting at least.
Size shifting, funny, can kind of hide, is not the most serious one, I guess. Or maybe Ant-Man would be like Roman. But okay, go ahead.
He says Hawkeye because I actually love the character of Hawkeye. He's kind of cool and aloof, but very skilled without powers.
Yeah, true.
Tej, what do you think about Tej?
Tej. See, I'm gonna go back to Guardians. I'm gonna be like Tej is like Rocket.
Okay, I think the similar angle. He says Iron Man because of the tech angle, but I think Rocket because of the tech angle makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because Tej as Iron Man does not make sense.
No. He's not like powerful enough. Like Rocket's like I'm gonna put stuff together, but he's not like a high tier guy. That's why I was thinking that. Also a
I can
criminal.
also see him as Rhodey, as like War Machine Iron Patriot. Like Iron Man's kind of bud. Like he's also the tech angle
Oh.
there too. So
Okay,
I
yeah,
can see that.
that makes sense.
Roman, who do you think Roman would be? Wes here picks someone that he thinks that Roman would want to be, but he says but he'd be really bad at it. He says Black Panther.
Roman would, if you ask Roman who he would be in the MCU, the answer would be Black Panther.
But he'd be really bad at it. He says
Yeah,
Ramsey.
like it's just really fun. And Ramsey's definitely Black Panther's sister.
Oh, Shuri. Yeah, I like that. He says Ramsey be Vision because he's like the ultimate hacker. So I feel like Vision is kind of above and beyond. Like I don't know. Like it almost might
Vision
be
would be like
Cypher
Cypher to
Vision.
me. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Vision would be Cypher to me.
Mr. Nobody and Nick Fury would have a lot to talk about or not talk about, as the case may be.
Ooh, very good point. Yeah.
And then this one I think is interesting. He says, "Who do you think Brian? Who do you think Brian would be?"
Like I said, when I was thinking about it, it has to be Star-Lord for me.
He says he'd be Thor. I agree with you. I think Star-Lord works. He says Thor because he was always trying to prove himself, but the hammer would let him know he's worthy.
Okay, but Thor is like, I guess, I don't know. I guess Brian's a little bit more clean cut, and Thor kind of like is nearer to good, more neutral good than he is neutral bad, right?
Yeah.
So I get the Thor reference a lot, but he's such a buster. He's more bumbly than Thor. Well, Thor's kind of bumbly too, especially he gets fat later, fat Thor. What?
I just like your, just it's almost like we're not here, just like you're just going down this rabbit hole, and I just like that you're just, basically having an argument with yourself, like I don't know, I don't know. So I'm just like I like listening to your train of thought. I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm laughing as though I'm listening to the podcast.
that's fair. This is how I work out a lot of these things in my head.
I get it.
Yeah.
He says that'd be cool, but unfortunately, I think the more likely crossover would be with Transformers, and I'm just not as interested in that. However, I think it would be very cool if we have a movie about young Dom, young Letty, young Vince, like we were talking about last episode. Them in the '80s or whatever, and then out of nowhere, we got Haley Steinfeld and Bumblebee rolling up. I think that would be cool.
It would be really cool. And he's right that I do think that the more appropriate crossover would be Transformers, and I do think that that would be more boring to me. I agree with Wes 100% there. I don't think that it would be as fun. If it was a crossover of Transformers, it would be the two separate characters, right? And also, it would be like the machines are one thing and the characters are the other. With like a crossover with MCU, we'd see the dynamics of their relationships and personalities better than if you did it with Transformers. And I think that that's ultimately what he was getting at too. That we would much rather see them like how their personalities play out than just like, oh, Roman driving around Bumblebee being like, this button's fucking sick, and like that kind of stuff.
I think either in terms of a logistics point of view is probably equally likely or unlikely because Fast and Furious is Universal, Transformers is Paramount, and MCU is Disney, so they're all separate distributors, right? And so there would be, it's not like it's all synergy, right? Where it's like, The Simpsons and Pixar and Disney and Star Wars could all exist in the same thing, like it's all the same parent company, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's going to be a negotiation made one way or the other. Technologically, I think it makes sense what Wes is saying, but I agree with you that, like, personality-wise, I think what we care about with these movies, it'd be more interesting to see the characters that we know from the MCU, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
That was a really fun thought process, actually. Like a thought
Yeah.
experiment. I really liked it.
He says, speaking of crossovers, Bloodshot is Valiant, not DC, so it's unlikely Bloodshot and Black Adam will ever meet, but we can always dream. I'd love to see them do that close standing, talking past each other's faces they did at the end of F6 as their comic book counterparts. So I think that was the thing that Valiant maybe was owned by Marvel. Like Valiant, I knew that Valiant was, or I didn't know it was Valiant, but I knew when I think we were saying this to Nate. I think I knew at some point like it was tied to one of them, and I couldn't remember which, and I couldn't remember it was DC. Like I'm not in the comics world enough to understand the relationships there. I think
The
it was tied in
buyout,
somehow.
the hierarchy of like
Yeah.
who owns who and what does that mean and all
Nico
this
explained
thing.
this to me at one point because I asked him specifically about something. He's just like, "Here's how it is." I'm just like, "Oh, I'm not gonna remember any of this." So
Yeah.
in one ear, out the other.
It happens. It's okay. We can only give so much of our brain space to useless nonsense, and we're doing Fast and Furious Minute, so
Yep.
gotta
Yeah.
gotta keep space there.
Yes, please. He says, speaking of Bloodshot, I went against your advice and saw Bloodshot on Sunday. It was about as good as you might expect based on the trailers, which I have not seen. I like some of the characters and the story has potential, but it was just kind of an excuse to have a bunch of slow motion fight scenes. Says, don't
That's
get me
cool.
wrong, I'm all for that. I just think they were missing some of the character moments. Although I will say there are a couple times where I thought, this is the most I've seen Vin Diesel emote in years.
Ooh, interesting.
He says, the day after I saw it, Alamo announced it's closing all locations temporarily, and like all I can think is, what if this is the last movie I ever saw in theaters?
I don't want to think about that.
What was the last one I would have seen in theaters? Onward, I guess?
I have no idea.
Like, that's what's weird is that, like when my friend came over to install the speakers here, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
do you have, like, a certain song or something that, like, you play when you install something new to, like,
Oh.
that you know really well? For me, when I get a new TV setup or a new surround sound or whatever, I put on the beginning
Okay.
of Lost because, like, the opening for the
Ah.
pilot of Lost, because, I know that scene and I want to hear the sounds and I want to see what it looks like, right? It's like,
You,
no,
yeah,
not
you
really.
know that this is a common thing. Oh, he doesn't have one of these?
No, and that's why I was surprised, because he's, like, a sound guy, too.
All sound guys have this thing, right? And I have a really cool story about this. When I was I was like building my speakers, right? And I was hanging out with these hi-fi guys, and they were older guys, and like there's two like really main sound testing songs that like all of these guys use, right? And it's like a very common thing. There's like this James Bond spoof movie on the album, like the actual record. Dusty Springfield sings "A Look of Love." Okay. They're like, yeah, we use that. And then there was this other one that was called like Big Bang Swing or something like that because it has like a ton of range in it, right? And it's like horn instruments and
Gotcha.
drums.
Yep.
So they use those things. So like I actually have a copy of each of these albums because they were like, look, you need to get these two. Like if it sounds good with these two, it's good. The thing that I use though, the song that I always use to test speakers or headphones or whatever is always Dead Mouse's Strobe.
Okay.
Because like it channels really well. So like if you listen to anything in stereo, like it's like very like he has stuff that, like all the songs like the sounds track. They move like from the left to the right. There's like whale noises in it and it's electronic. So I really like that. And he masters his music really really well. So that's my song that I use when I do stuff.
Cool.
And it's a song that I've heard a million times, right? I've seen
Right.
it live. I've
Yes.
heard it in things. So like I know what the song's supposed to sound like. I have good copies of it. The song moves really well. It gives me everything that I want when I'm trying to set up speakers.
The reason I bring that up is because I think for a lot of things, like when you have something new, you're like, what's the first thing I'm going to do? What's the first movie I'm going to watch? What's the first song I'm going to hear? But I feel like unless there's something planned, you never really get, like sometimes you don't get a chance to figure out what your last thing is. And so like, if the
True.
last movie you saw was Bloodshot, it's kind of
Yeah.
depressing. I mean, you could do worse than the Vin Diesel movie, right? Like you could,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
could.
he's the star of your favorite film franchise. It's not
Yeah.
a Fast and Furious movie, but like you could have gone and seen whatever trash is out there.
Geely.
More current reference, Fantasy Island, whatever. But yeah, if you want to go back to Geely, a Ben Affleck movie, sure, why not?
Yeah, Alamo's doing like Geely night.
Yeah.
on, like a random ass Thursday or something.
He says he writes in here about what we've been talking about online about they're still having their marathon, but they're going to
Postpone
do
it.
it next year instead. He says maybe we should write our own version of what we think F9 will be based on the trailer and record a table read or something.
Oh.
I feel like I like that idea. That's a level of commitment that I don't want to commit to.
I feel awkward writing fan fiction, right? Because this is essentially just fact fan fiction.
That's a Zephron Lover 19 or a...
Lunar She-Wolf.
I also think that, like, if we go too deep into that, I think that we might get too excited and only be... Like, I feel like that it only sets you up for...
Disappointment.
failure. Yeah, disappointment when the actual movie, you're like, in our version, we found out who No Niece Denise was, and Giselle came back, and then we had this, and just like, oh, none of that happened.
Yeah. I
Like,
agree.
I love that idea, and like, Wes, if you write a script, we will do something with it,
Oh, we definitely will write it. Even if you write
yeah, I
like a
don't want to
scene
build
or
my
something.
hopes up for something that like is almost certainly not that the F9 is going to be bad, but like I don't want to get excited about something that's not actually, like
I don't want to disappoint myself by something that I shouldn't have even thought of. You know what I
yes,
mean?
yep. It says last thing, a friend of mine recently launched a podcast about building fantasy theme parks or attractions around film franchises, which is kind of like Jordan's. I don't know if she talked about it in the Greatest Showman episode or in the Fast and Furious 6 episode in Lab 2 or just on her own podcast. But Jordan and Kara have talked a lot about like building acrobatic, like basically what Wes is talking about, but like about circus, like a circus show of speed
Oh,
or a circus show of Fast and Furious. Because like, how do you
that's
adapt
really
the
cool.
content, the story, the things like cars or whatever to what you can do at a circus? So I think this is something
Interesting.
not a
Yeah.
theme park, but Jordan's got that whole thing in circus. I feel like we might have talked about it with her, or maybe I just heard it in Wistful. But either way, Wes goes on.
Okay.
They were planning an episode about Fast and Furious to coincide with F9's release. He said he'd never seen any of the movies, even though they're going to push the episode back until next year. He decided to watch them anyway. As of last night, they had finished Tokyo Drift, and they're loving them. I hope they would like the
Good.
movies, but I wasn't really sure, so I'm happy they're enjoying the experience. They said they both screamed when Dom showed up at the end. I only wish we could watch along with them for the first time, but it's enough for me that they're fans now. Anyway, I've gone on long enough this week. I look forward to whatever's left of the podcast after coronavirus is done with it. Until next time, stay furious and sickness-free, Wes.
Well, thank you for writing in, Wes. I appreciate it.
And we're not going anywhere, like we said.
We're not going anywhere. Not leaving your house. There's not much else we can do besides talk to each other about Fast and Furious movies. So, yeah.
So if you want to write in next episode, we will read it. family@cageclub.me. Send us your thoughts. If you have not written in before, just say hello. Send in your rankings. In-N-Out versus Whataburger. What are you doing? Are you watching Fast and Furious? What's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, hold on. We have another email. I forgot that we have another email. He sends it to a different email address. But we have an email from Jason Dickinson. Hold on.
Okay.
Jason, I did not forget about you. I'm sorry. It just got routed to a different place. The last email we got, this is from Monday from Jason. He says, F9 2021. Hey, what up? Here are my thoughts on F9 being pushed back a whole year. Honestly, it sucks. Because in May, I was making big plans to binge watch the entire franchise, including Hobbs and Shaw. Stay fast, stay furious, ride or die fam, love you. P.S. I got my first tattoo.
Oh!
So a few things there. Number one, what's your tattoo of? Very interested in that. Number two,
Yes.
you could still binge watch everything in May. You don't have to wait till next year.
We can have like a pretend like Fast 9 came out party. Like we're
We
gonna
also,
still be talking
you and I
about
watched
them.
every movie, all the movies 3 times a year.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah. According to Jason, because he lets us know when he's watching the movies, I don't think he's not watching the movies right
Exactly.
now either. Okay, bud. Like we know that you're still watching them. You just didn't get to watch them all in one day before the new one comes out.
But you can still do it. I've done that with Mission Impossible. I've done that with Die Hard. I've done that with the Scream movies. I mean, you could just make your own little marathon. Just do your own thing.
I have a playlist digitally that I just like put on and just like shuffle them.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you feel like.
But if you want to email in family@cageclub.me, let us know what's going on, and we'll read on the next episode when we get it. But, Joe, on the streets, there hasn't been any Fast and Furious news other than the movie getting delayed, but Vin Diesel has been running his mouth in wonderful ways, saying that
about this.
the end of Furious 7 is the best moment in the history of cinema, that Steven Spielberg said it would be a crime against cinema if he never directed again. I don't know
Wait, when he says that he's the J.R.R. Tolkien of music, remember?
I love it. Oh yeah, he's gonna become a musician now. He had that Facebook video that he posted several years ago. I don't know if you've seen, but it's just called "You Know I Love Music," and it was celebrating maybe the new Riddick movie's box office returns or something. And he was just dancing to Katy Perry's "Dark Horse" and I think a song by Beyonce. It's just like I don't know what is going on. I think he's maybe going a little stir crazy. I don't know. It's better than the Vanessa Hudgens alternative. I can tell you that much.
I agree. It's very wholesome. This
is
just
aspirational
gentle.
wonder.
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, he is talking some flagrant shit. Spielberg told him it will be a crime against humanity if he never directs another movie.
Amazing.
I don't think we have any way to prove that, but if Spielberg didn't come out and say, fuck Vin Diesel about this, it's truth to me. That works for me. I was thinking, if this is true, do you think Spielberg, called Scorsese and, Tarantino and was like, you'll never guess who I just told to make another movie because I'm dying to see it. And, those dudes are just cackling to themselves right now. They're like,
did you hear, on that note, there was a news story that broke this week that Fiona Apple, the singer, I think it was Fiona Apple, hold on.
Yes, it was Fiona Apple.
That she spent a night a quote insufferable night doing drugs with Paul Thomas Anderson and Quentin Tarantino. And just at first I was like, oh no, me too. Like this is gonna be terrible. And then no, it's just like them being like, God, how good are we as directors? Like, can you fucking believe how good we are at making movies? Yeah, that's exactly what I think that it would be like. Like, it's not a surprise, but it's fitting that that's true. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. I like that being locked in a room with Tarantino doing cocaine was enough to be like, I never want to do this again.
Yeah. There's one of two extremes there. Either it's the greatest experience of your life or it's absolute hell. Like there's no way.
I think it would be miserable. I can't imagine he's fun. I love his movies. I like him as a person. I like interviews and stuff like that. But like I feel like he would be very insufferable. Like 15 minutes into being around him, like I can't do this anymore. Like personality wise, for me, I would be like, shut this guy up. Like I can't hear him talk about himself anymore. It is funny though.
And then in more serious news that we found out that both Idris and the guy who played Tormund in Game of Thrones, he's the redhead who Cypher's right-hand man in Fate,
Yep.
both have coronavirus, and so our thoughts out to both of them. No better way to transition to that than that, but whether you're trapped in a room
healthy.
hearing Quentin Tarantino brag or you're stuck at home with coronavirus, like, thoughts and prayers to both of you.
Yeah. Very true. Not laughing at the coronavirus part, laughing at the nice segue you made there.
Top of the rock. Even though, we might never have another presidential election again. Who knows? We're going to search here. Dwayne Johnson, president. The Rock halts production on Red Notice in Georgia.
That would make sense. Okay.
The other thing that I was reading about it was that basically, like, all these TV shows that have shut down production are basically not going to come back. Like, if they had, like, 1 or 2 episodes left to film this year, it costs so much money to basically start production up again that a lot of TV seasons are going to get cut short. And so if there's a show that's, like, in the middle of a season that has not finished yet, like a lot of network stuff, like a lot of stuff on CBS, NBC, Fox, ABC, those kind of things, like, just might not actually come back this year. Like, they might just be, like, awkwardly at the end, which is not the end of the world. Like in terms of a show that's going to come back next year, you could just sort of resume the story or whatever, you know what I mean? But like, if this is the final, like there's a show like Superstore, which my sister loves, that America Ferrara is the star of that. I think that's her the actor's name, I think, and she's not coming back. Like she's like, this is my final season, and they didn't finish shooting that show. Something's got to break one way or the other, right? Either she's got to come back, or they got to like write her out in a weird way. But like, I'm sure that they had some kind of like emotional send off, even though it's a comedy. And now they can't. So, like, it's weird things like that, too, right? So
that would be, like, the shittiest way to end your show. Like, as a fan, can you imagine if, like, Fast and Furious was just like, oh, no, like, we're done at 8. Like, that's it. It's just over now.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what the fuck? Like...
But, yeah, and then no news for The Rock president either. So it does not seem like he is running for president still. I mean, there are other things to go on. But, yeah, I don't know. No Rock the vote. But, Joe, the last thing we have to do before we take a break is talk about the Fast and the Furious minute. So here's the thing. It's such an iconic moment. I don't know what to call this minute. It's minute 39. Either a 10-minute car, or Pop the Hood, or This Is Your Car.
I like a 10-minute car.
Okay. Minute 39, a 10-minute car.
Nitrous oxide in his blood and a gas tank for a brain. Do not turn your back on.
Hey, Tanner. I'm gonna need another car.
What about parts and service?
Hold on.
Dom, I don't know what to do with this.
What the hell is this? What do you got there?
This is your car.
My car? I said a 10-second car, not a 10-minute car.
You could push this across the finish line or tow it.
Couldn't even tow that across the finish line.
No faith.
Oh, I have faith in you, but this isn't a junkyard. This is a garage.
Hey, pop the hood.
Pop the hood?
Pop the hood.
2JZ engine, no shit.
And what did I tell you?
I retract my previous statement.
You know what? This will decimate all.
So in this minute, Brian gets Tanner to give him another car. Then he delivers Dom his 10-second car. He goes to Dom's garage, his auto body shop, delivers the car there, and they pop the hood, and that's it. But this is, we were talking about, like...
It starts at he has gas tank for brains.
Nitrous oxide
in his
blood, and a gas tank for a brain. Do not turn your back on him.
Yes, which is like that's one of my favorite Fast and Furious quotes, right?
It's literally in our podcast write-up. Like the description for this show says we've got nitrous oxide in our blood and gas tanks for brains. You know what I mean? So it's core to our DNA.
And it makes sense. It's super appropriate. So we start with that, and we finish with Jesse just about to say overnight parts from Japan. Right? Like we cut him off like right before he says it.
This will decimate all after ...
Yes.
what I noticed here, there's two big things. Number one, this is Dom's auto body shop that I feel like we don't go back. Like, I want more stuff here. Like, this feels like we should be spending so much time here, and we're not. It's DT Precision Auto Shop, aka Dominic Toretto
Yep.
Precision Auto Shop. So
Yep.
that's amazing. And then the other thing that I noticed, and I want to talk about both these things with you. Number one is that, but number two, Mia feels really visibly torn in this scene between wanting to make fun of the guy that her family is making fun of, but also like, oh, but I like him. And like, I don't want to laugh at him, but like, I kind of want to laugh at him. And that she feels, there's only like a couple glances here and there, and maybe,
Well,
this might just be that we're reading too far into it, but it feels like
Nope.
she's like, I don't know whether to laugh at him or not.
It's not that. It's that she has a relationship with Brian from the store, Toretto's Cafe. So she has been talking to Brian, and she knows him. And she also knows her family. And she's in one of those weird positions where, like, two friend groups are merging.
Yeah.
And she's in between. And, like, she knows that they're being nice and they want to make fun of Brian.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I'm just thinking, like, it's exactly it's exactly the situation that Ellie Toretto's in. Like, how do you introduce bad boy Johnny Tran to your family?
International bad boy.
International bad boy Johnny Tran.
Yeah.
These Toretto women, they just,
They're always
Dom's
torn.
control over their life.
Pulled in so many directions all the time. But no, that's what I think it is. And I think that
Yeah.
actually she plays it really well. That, like, she has to, like, she's part of the family, right? So she has to, like, she knows these guys, she knows what they're going to do, and she's, like, laughing with them. But at the same time, she's like, I know Brian's a good guy, and I talk to him at the cafe all the time. So, like, I can't, like, actually laugh at him because, like, I don't want him to think I'm different than the girl that works at the cafe
Right.
because that's me too. Yeah, it's an awkward situation.
And the other thing that I don't think about, but we covered a couple minutes ago, is that she drove him home from the fort at the party. Like, they had, private one-on-one time there too, right? She's like, let's get you out of here, whatever, right? So, like, they have this relationship that he doesn't really, like, he's starting to have with Dom, but with none of the other people. And so, like,
It's
a tough,
intimidating
it's a delicate
too
balance.
when you individually come into, like, a new friend group that's been long established. It's intimidating.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he has to come in and, like, if they make fun of him, like, you got to take it. Right. Like,
Yeah.
it's either like you're like, fuck you guys, I'm never coming back here, or like, okay, like, I'm the new guy, I get hazed a little bit. Like, that's
And
what
he
happens.
gives it back to him. He's just like, you got no faith. It's just like, come on, man. Like, pop the hood. Like,
Yeah.
let me show you. Like, trust me. The thing that I put on Twitter and Facebook today when I did this is, like, this minute is so goddamn good. Like, all I can think about is at
Yes.
the end of 7, right, where they have that, like, montage that still makes me cry, that, like, is making me, like, well up a little bit now as I'm thinking about it when they say goodbye to Paul, say goodbye to Brian. That shot of him, like, this is your car. Like, that's just that arm gesture. And then Dom
Yep.
going, my car. Like, though, it's so core to what this movie is, to who these characters are. And that's why I said name a more iconic duo, like that Kylie and Kendall Jenner meme from, like, forever ago. But it's like,
Yeah.
like, this is them. This is just, like, them giving each other shit, but also, like, nothing but love and admiration, and, like, this is who they are.
It's great because you see that, like, Brian is actually a cop trying to arrest a guy undercover.
He's just a boy staying in front of a girl,
Yeah.
telling her that he loves her.
Dom is actually a criminal that's, like, working on cars. They bring the car together and they're both just buds, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
like the most like, it's just a bro down. Like, they'll make fun of each other and stuff, but they're like, okay, this is cool though. You brought a car, I get it, and they're friendly.
So now you found the car that he delivers, like, basically the flatbed
tow
truck
truck.
or whatever, the tow truck.
Yeah.
Do you know what car it is that he delivers? Like, do you see that the hunk of junk with the 2JZ engine?
Yeah, it's Brian's Supra that we get for the rest of the movie.
Because it's not in the minute document. That's all I'm pointing out here.
Well, because it's not. Well, it's real. It's just the shell of it at this point.
Okay.
We're gonna get to the car. I was gonna wait till, like, it's built, right? Because, like, you don't think about this scene to be like, that's the Supra. That's the done Supra. It's Brian's Supra.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
I was
just.
just, keeping you honest in the minute document. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you could keep me honest in the minutes. I purposely left it out, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an intentional move to be like, this wasn't a car. I was more curious about what the car Letty's in front of that has the hood up.
Yeah.
That I can't figure out what it is.
And the hood kind of looks like a Monster Energy drink can.
Yeah, it says, like, Jacob's Auto Body, or Jacob's Auto Speed something, Speed Sport, Auto Sport. I can't figure out what it looks like. It could be another Supra, but I'm unsure. Like the tail lights are kind of wacky. I don't know. If somebody knows what it is, write in. Like, what's the black car that Letty's standing in front of that has the Jacobs Auto
It's
Sport?
probably listed on the Internet Movie Car Database.
It's not.
Probably. It's
I
not?
looked. It's not. That's why I looked. Yes.
Wow, okay.
Trust me, I did my due diligence here. I'm just saying, like,
You
couldn't
did,
figure it out.
especially today. You got nothing but time, so I'm not.
Yeah.
I do want to point out before we get into the insides, the signs and everything like that. So, okay, so two things.
Okay.
Number one, I asked resident fashion expert Cara Gala Regan a couple times, a new title that you bestowed to her via Facebook today.
Today. Yes.
I kept sending her screenshots. I'm like, Cara, how would you describe this? Cara, is this belt a wide belt or a chunky belt? Cara, is this...
Yes.
What do you call jean shorts? Are these jean shorts? And it turns out to be a skirt. But, like, I kept sending her, like, what is this? What is this? What is this? And I'm like,
Yes.
are these wedge sandals? She said, yes. I'm like, I'm learning. So there are
Yes.
things that I'm picking up, but Cara has confirmed a few things in the Fast and Furious Minute document. But the cooler thing I think I found was Jesse's wearing a shirt that, like, I had to pause so many different times because, it's kind of like he keeps turning, it's kind of folding on itself. It's not prominent in the screen, in the scene, in the shot, but he's wearing 1985 first annual NHRA Fall Nationals held in
Yes.
Phoenix, Arizona t-shirt. And I Googled and I found the event, like, in the 30th anniversary or whatever of the show.
Yeah.
Like, I think like 2016, they were going back year by year. And so that this like this whole write up of these pictures of the scene. So I was like, this is super cool that this shirt that like I mean, not that they're gonna make this shirt custom for the movie. If they did, that would have been like Race Wars or whatever, right? But like,
Yeah.
I think it's cool that we were able to find like I could read. I sort of like doing my detective work.
What
Like,
the
this, I
event
feel
was.
yeah, like this is sort of my version of your. What's the address of this place? I'm like, oh, what's this clothing? Oh, here we go.
Yes, and you did, and now you did learn a little bit about Jesse's character because you're like, oh, you got this shirt. Like, where did he get the shirt from, right? Like, did his dad give it to him? Did he buy it? Like, I'm starting to think, like, did his dad go and bring the shirt back for Jesse because he knew he would like this? Or did Jesse just see the shirt at a thrift store and was like, this is a dope shirt? Or, you know what I mean? Any of these are cool possibilities. But yes, that is a really cool thing that you found the event that it was on. And I wish
I was
that we
hoping
could...
I could find the shirt too, and I
Same.
couldn't. But I wanted to like buy it for you and be like, hey, here's a gift for you. And be like, what is this? And be like, yo, that's
Jesse's
the shirt
shirt.
that Jesse wears in the first movie. In that one scene, be like, oh my god, like no
It'd
one
be the
would
coolest
know.
thing ever.
But yeah.
Yeah, it'll be really, really cool.
All right. So what's some cool stuff that you found inside signs, products, and model numbers? Because there's a lot going on in this garage.
There's a lot in the garage, so I was just trying to see like what was going on. I have two big takeaways besides the Dominic Toretto Precision Garage sign which I had never noticed, to be honest with you, until we watched this minute. We were catching the stickers on the cars. Remember, we saw like the DTs on all the cars. It's the same logo, and it's really cool that we saw like the signage of this because I'm always noticing like when you see the scene, the truck is backing up and like the sign's like over it, but just like the coloring and like the palette of it, it's like not very intense to like draw your eye to the sign. Another thing that like I never really noticed is Dom in front of the contractor's pyramid sign.
Love it.
That's like my favorite part of this scene to discover in the background. I've been to like a lot of tattoo shops and they all have like variations of this sign, right? Like good tattoos aren't cheap and cheap tattoos aren't good, right? Like that's like the saying. He has this contractor's pyramid sign. It's a triangle and on one side it says good, on one side it says fast, and the other side it says cheap. And then underneath it says fast plus good is not cheap. Fast plus cheap is not good. And good and cheap is not fast. And I was like, that's really awesome. This is a really cool sign.
Where does Furious fit in?
Oh, I'm furious that you're questioning this sign. If you try to talk me down in price, I'll be furious at you. I found like all of the stickers on the lockers. I wrote down as many as I could make out in the film. One interesting thing that I noticed is that all of the tool boxes are Craftsman, not Snap-on, which they like have Snap-on tools and like things in all the other movies, but all of a sudden they have all these Craftsman toolboxes, which actually kind of feels more realistic because they'd probably be a lot cheaper.
Dom is drinking a can of Red Bull. Does Nas exist yet? We've talked about this before, but does Nas the drink exist at this point?
I don't think so.
Because it exists for 2, because Brian drops the tracker in the can in 2. But I guess maybe because of this movie, they made Nas the drink between 01 and 03?
Maybe.
Because I feel like he would have been drinking Nas, but instead he's just drinking Red Bull.
Yeah, he's just drinking Red Bull for sure. All the parts that are like laid out, there's like a muffler, headers for your engine, and like a turbo all laid out. So like we know in this scene that they're doing some kind of exhaust work. Some kind of exhaust modifications.
You say we know. You know. I don't know what I'm looking at.
There's just like a whole bunch of like exhaust parts and like different. They're doing like exhaust things. Because I was like, what are they like working on in the car, right? And like Jesse's like, like grinding and fucking cutting, and I was like, what? I was wondering if I could piece together like what they were like working on. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They have all these exhaust parts around. I bet they're doing some kind of exhaust modifications here.
Cool. The song "Race Against Time" by Ja Rule begins, so that's
Ja Rule
earlier, Ja Rule back here.
That's right.
The only thing, Joe, trivia question. I got 3 questions here. I'm thinking we go with the third one, but the 3 that I wrote down, if there's a better one that you think that we could go with any of these or one that you have, either what type of engine is in the car that Brian gives Dom, which is the 2JZ engine.
Too easy. Way too easy. It's a meme. It's not hard enough for our fans.
If you asked me yesterday or this morning, I would not. I don't even know.
Okay. Literally everyone else would. Like 99% of the people that have seen this movie would know exactly what it is.
I think you're way overestimating. I'll believe you to a certain extent, but I think that like it's not. Because
also
it's
popular. Become a Fast and the Furious meme as well. But okay, yes,
like to the extent of like Hector running 3 cycles with spoon
engines, yeah, okay. T55 turbos, whatever, yeah.
So then, I mean, we might need gimme questions, but I'll get rid of that. So then, number 2, how quickly could the car that Brian gives Dom race a quarter mile? 10 minutes. But that's also in the name of the minute, so I don't know if we want to do that one.
Yeah, I don't like that one. Go ahead.
But then a very nitpicky thing is what event is commemorated on the shirt that Jesse is wearing?
I think that one would cause the most rage from my friends watching it. Or you could just do what's Dom's garage name? What's the name of Dom's garage? I like the Fall Nationals one, but it is hard, and you'll get lots of angry feedback about it.
Okay, so what is the name of the auto body shop that Dom owns?
Yes.
We could do Toretto's Auto Body.
Yep, for sure.
DT Precision Auto Body.
Yep.
10-second Auto Body.
Toretto's Speed Cafe.
Okay. So we got DT Precision Auto Body, which is the right answer. 10-second Auto Body, Toretto's Auto Body, and Toretto's Speed Cafe.
Yeah, perfect. That's actually a good one. I think that's pretty good.
We're up to 40 questions on the quiz. 39 minutes, 40 questions. So if you have not taken the quiz yet, if you are on a Patreon, you can go find the quiz there. I think it's not too far down. I still have pinned at the top of our Patreon page the poll. If you're not voted in the poll yet, and then also if you want to contribute even $1 a month, you can vote over there too. On there somewhere is the quiz. I might repost the quiz too. Take the quiz if you have not taken the quiz yet. Wildly difficult, like we said. Even people who listen to every episode have written in a bunch, like Alex and Justin.
You guys heard me live take the
also
quiz
us,
of questions
yes.
that I took, that I made with Joey and didn't do well on. It's hard.
Anything else you want to say about the minute, or do you want to take a break and come back and talk about Bullitt?
I want to come back and talk about Bullitt.
All right. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Too Fast, Too Forever. This is episode number 76, Pit Stop Bullitt. This episode's brought to you by Ford, the 2020 Ford Mustang Bullitt Edition.
Ooh.
Is as fast as it looks suggests. The Mustang GT on which the Bullitt is based is no slowpoke thanks to its beefy 5.0 V8 engine, which produces oodles of low-down torque and wide rear tires that manage to put the power down reliably. The Bullitt Edition. So I don't know if you went and checked your Mustang that you got outside, but did you see that it says Bullitt all in the dash?
It says Bullitt everywhere. Bullitt here, Bullitt there, Bullitt everywhere.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to save the sponsor surprise for you, but I mean, if the car is just labeled with Bullitt everywhere.
The funny thing about this movie, and funny is not the right word, but funny thing considering what we're covering it for, is that it's not really a car movie. It's like a detective movie with like a fucking awesome car chase in it, and then like no other car scenes basically in the entire thing, which is weird and cool, but I was all about it.
I knew about the car chase scene in Bullitt, but I had never seen the movie. I didn't expect it to be as much of not a car movie as it is, right?
Part of the detective work that Bullitt does, that Lieutenant Frank Bullitt does, is that he follows the taxi that like there's cars, like they're following cars and everything like that, but it's basically like he's just following people around being a detective. Then there's an 11-minute, a 10-minute, 53-second car chase, and then there's just the rest of the movie. And it's not a car movie, it's just a regular movie, non-car movie with a great car scene.
So I knew about the car chase. I've seen the car chase before. I was thinking that the car was like going to be an integral part of the movie, a la two-lane blacktop. You know what I mean? That it was going to be like, oh, they're like he's in the car all the time. But I was pleasantly surprised that he wasn't. Although that car is really fucking badass, and
Yeah.
I was hoping that there was more of the car in the movie. I was doing some research on this. I'm sure you have a ton of cool facts too, but let me steal a couple
Go for
from the jump. That Steve McQueen, when he made this movie, he said he wanted his '68 Mustang to be a character in the movie. So I was like, oh, in that sense, the car chase scene is awesome, and it definitely relates, right? Like, it feels like the cars are integral. They're integral parts of the chase scene. They're definitely not just, like, part of a chase. They feel like they needed to be these cars, these guys driving them, this type of thing. So I'm like, oh, that works really well. But on the reciprocal, if the car is a character, I wish we'd have seen more of that character.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that, especially given that, like, if people know one thing about this movie, they know about the car. I think the car is even on the poster. Watching this movie from the Fast and the Furious, where Suki and everybody calls him Bullitt, I guess it's more because he's a cop than he's a...
This is something I really wanted to suss out with you, though. They call Brian Bullitt, and this is like one of the main things I was thinking about when I was watching this movie. Does that mean that they know Brian was a cop?
I don't know. I think part of it... So that's what I'm not sure about. So I think part of it is that Steve McQueen was a very pretty man with piercing blue eyes, blonde hair.
Yes.
And so I think
Yes.
in that regard, there's the cop element of it. There's the car driving element of it.
Yeah, he's
I
a
think
good
there's
driver.
A lot of different reasons why you might nickname someone Bullitt. I think they all apply to Brian, but whether or not Suki and Jimmy and everybody know that he was a cop, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's a weird, like, foreshadowing nod of the cap that Brian is a cop, but I don't think that really, like, when they call him to race...
Quick question, is he a cop in 2, or he just gets called in to help?
No, he wasn't a cop. He used to be a cop.
Right. Roman knows that he's a cop because he used to be a cop because he thought that Brian helped take him down, right? But, like, he's not going around bragging about it, but he was sort of on the lam running away from LA. So, I don't know. I guess he's probably not openly bragging about being a cop. It doesn't seem like anybody in Miami knows Dom's
They're not, like,
crew.
scared of him.
Right.
And they're not, like, frightened, because, like, if you had, like, a late-night illegal street race, you wouldn't be like, oh, I got this cop friend, let me call him.
Right. Yeah.
But also, you call him Bullitt, which is, like, Frank Bullitt is a cop. I think it's a little tongue-in-cheek from the writer's perspective.
Probably that. I think it also, they might just know, because it seems like they're pretty streetwise, they might know that he has, like, he's, kind of got narkish, it feels like Brian kind of is a cop. Like, he both feels like a cop and doesn't feel like a cop in every movie, and so I think they might also give him shit for sort of feeling like a cop. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's a lot going on there, and I don't know that we necessarily have an answer, even though... I wrote down that this movie feels like a peek behind the curtain of Brian O'Connor. Like, this sort of feels like
does.
Brian in a past life, even though he's a better cop in this movie than I think, sorry, Wes, than Brian ever will be in any of the movies.
He is. He toes the line. He has a lot of Brianisms in him, right? Like, he's not being a clean-cut cop, but I think that he's a much better cop.
Yes.
Than Brian is, yeah.
And I think that's, I wrote down a lot of that, and we'll go through that as we go through the movie in terms of the Fastnections, but he doesn't play by the rules. He's sort of, intentionally breaks the rules for his own benefit to prove, like,
Works
he's like,
outside
I
the
know
law.
what's going on, right? Like, it's not Dom,
Yeah.
It is not this guy, or whatever, right? Like, it's, I'm right, I'm smarter than you, let me do my thing, stop getting in my way.
Yeah, instead of, like, tripping over himself because of a girl, there's a girl that exists outside of the world. It's all really interesting. Did you like this movie? Can we start there?
Oh, I did. I like this movie a whole lot.
I like this movie a ton, and I'm surprised I hadn't seen it before. I know that I definitely watched the car chase with my father when I was a kid, in the sense that, like, it was on some movie channel, and my dad was like, come here and see this car chase. So, like, I remember just that part, but I don't remember watching the rest of the movie. And there was, like, parts of it where I was, like, watching, and I wasn't really following along, but, like, I couldn't figure out what was going on. But it unfolds itself, and it tells you enough that it's not hard to follow. There's no, like, hidden gems or anything that I'm missing, I don't think. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, too.
This is considered one of the best movies of 1968, according to Wikipedia. This is, widely regarded.
What other movies came out in 68 that you can compare
Very
against?
good question. Let me find out.
That would help me scope
So while
it
I'm
a
looking
little
this up,
bit.
this was directed by Peter Yates, who is a guy who directed this movie, The Friends of Eddie Coyle, which is a movie that I have not seen that I want to see, but it's based on a book that my friend Bob, who I think I've mentioned on here or referenced on here, I don't know if by name or not, who's basically my friend who's got me back into reading, recommended. It's like this, like, really, really tight, realistic, hyper realistic crime story. So
Oh,
like this
cool.
book that like became a movie, and so this guy directed that. He also
Sounds
directed
interesting.
Breaking Away, which is a kind of a classic coming of age movie about four Indiana, I think, teenagers in the 70s. Okay, so in 1968, 2001: A Space Odyssey, great. Rosemary's Baby,
Damn.
great. Night of the Living
Damn.
Dead, great.
Yep.
Once Upon a Time in the West, Planet of the Apes, Hour of the Wolf, Bullitt. So those are the top 7 on Letterboxd in terms of popularity.
That's really cool.
Also
That's a
that
solid
year,
list.
Yellow Submarine, the Beatles movie, Barbarella, the Jane Fonda movie, which I've seen, Funny Girl. Yeah, but so it seems like, there's a handful of like all-time classics that year. But yeah, Bullitt is definitely up there in terms of the best, the most highly, well-regarded, and, most popular movies for sure.
Yeah, it's really good. I get it, and that's a good list too.
Do you have any other trivia that you wanted to hit me with before we dive into the movie? Or before I almost have too much that I don't want to do it up front. I kind of want to do it toward the end and just sort of see what comes up naturally in conversation. But anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I'll throw it in when I get there.
We start the movie off in Chicago. It's like, ooh, Chicago, new city, and then like
Same.
all of a sudden San Francisco is like, oh, which is also a new city, but California feels very familiar for a lot of different, you know what I mean? But I was just like, oh, Chicago, we haven't been there, and then almost by the time I recognize that like we're in Chicago, we see it on the outside or whatever. It's like, nope, not in Chicago anymore.
Yes, no, I thought this too. So I remembered the car like had a lot of jump scenes in it, right? Like it was like very like hilly.
Yeah.
And so like when we watch it and I see like the Chicago Sun-Times or whatever
Mm-hmm.
in the background, I was like, man, this movie's shot in Chicago. That's really fucking weird. Like, how do we get to the car chase? But then like we're instantly in San Francisco 5 minutes into this movie.
Because I think what happened when I was watching this was that I saw Chicago and I was like, I thought this was San Francisco. It's one of the the most famous like San Francisco car chases, and I think I looked down to like see like what movie I was thinking about and said Bullitt, and I was like, oh, and then I look up and like all of a sudden we were just in San Francisco. I was like, oh, okay, like I should have just waited 90 seconds and like I would have
Yeah.
been fine. Even though not really knowing anything about this other than the car scene, I knew that like it's the up and down, right, like the hilly.
Yes, yeah, you know that there's like because the cars get air, right? It reminds me of Gone in 60 Seconds. It reminds me of Fast and the Furious. All of these parts of it, I was like, oh, I can see them all in my head. And like I'm like, how do we get there in Chicago? Like Chicago's not that hilly, right?
Right.
So
San Francisco at the time apparently was not considered a great place to film movies, or not necessarily that it was bad, but it's just like people weren't filming movies there, and so they wanted to, like, this was one where they're like, hey, we'll give you like crazy, unprecedented access. Make your movie here, please.
yeah, you can see it because there's nobody. They shut down like the whole top of San Francisco to
Yeah,
shoot
they
this
closed down
movie.
multiple streets for 3 weeks for the car chase scene. They took over the airport at night one night. They gave up an
Yeah.
entire wing of the hospital for that thing. Like, they're basically just like, hey,
Oh, God.
we've got these sets for you. Go for it, please. And like, it
Can you imagine
works.
trying to shoot in San Francisco now and doing a car chase scene up and down the hills? It would be miserable.
That actually reminds me, and I don't even know, I'm sure Wes knows this being an Austin native, but in Austin, there is the airport, which is like sort of southeast of the city, right? Like you've flown into
Yeah.
there, it's sort of in the middle of nowhere. Near where I used to live, which is sort of like northwest-ish or northeast-ish Austin, I'm real near this thing called Airport Boulevard. And I was like, it's so, like, why was this called air? Like, it doesn't, there's no, it's not near the
It was
airport
the
at
old
all,
airport,
right?
I'm sure.
And so back in the 70s, before they built the new airport, the airport used to be basically like 5 minutes away from where my sister and I used to live. That's where the airport was. The airport was on Airport Boulevard. But what was cool is I was
Makes
talking to
sense.
somebody, and they were saying that like when they built the airport, before the airport was actually like open to the public, I don't remember what movie it was, but they shot a couple movies there or something, basically because they had
cool.
this like finished airport. They're like, hey, we might as well
Almost
like,
finished
when are
airport.
we going to have this opportunity again to basically use like a real airport for a movie, with no restrictions, no limitations, right? So
Yeah.
it's always cool when you're able to see like, oh, like that's not a soundstage, that's not a set, that's the real thing. How do they do this? Oh, the city really wanted them to, or oh, the airport wasn't actually open yet.
I was just talking about, like, you saying that they're using an airport that's empty. I was talking about how, like, the second season of Stranger Things, they have that whole sequence in the mall.
Yeah.
And, like, now all these malls are empty, so they found, like, this old mall. I think it was actually near Chicago. But, like, they found an old mall that's abandoned, and they were like, oh, this is really awesome. We can just shoot in this mall. We don't have to build a soundstage. Like, we have this mall. The stories about, like, the guys buying these malls, like, these investment companies buying these malls and not using them, but only pretty much renting them out to, like, Stranger Things and whatnot is really interesting.
Yeah. There's nothing kind of creepier, not to sort of get off track here, but there's nothing kind of creepier than like an abandoned mall. And there's another one when I
Yeah.
was in Austin. There was one that was basically like where we lived was not the best part of town. Like we were in a nice little development, but we were sort of like kind of surrounded by the ghetto a little bit. And near us there was this mall that I'm sure used to be great and then wasn't great when we were there. Every third store had a vacancy or had a store there, but like more stores than not were closed. And like there's something really eerie about going through a mall where that's still open, that still stores exist, but there's nothing happening and like it's like lights aren't on.
It's
just
sad.
like it's weird. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
sad and it's creepy.
I think it's just that our vision of malls is skewed because like we remember them being full when we were younger, you
Yeah.
know? And like now like there's no malls. So like if you do go to a mall, it's like, one person knitting in some random store and you're like that's kind of spooky.
The plot of this movie is that there is a guy who is in the mob or trying to escape from the mob in Chicago,
Wait, what did they call it? They don't call it the mob though. They call it the organization.
The outfit.
Right? The outfit. That's right.
which
Okay.
is the Italian-based. Like, there's a whole like
It's
that's
the mob.
real. It's the real name of the mob apparently in Chicago. It's like that's what they were called.
Oh,
I didn't know that. I looked that up today. That was on Wikipedia.
I didn't know that.
There's a guy who wants to basically get away from the mob, and so he partners up with this senator.
Because he stole money from the mob.
Yes, and he partners up with this senator to basically like, hey, like protect me, and I'll turn on them or whatever. Bullitt and his two partners or two other detectives or whatever are tasked to guard him very quickly because this whole movie takes place over like a weekend, right? Like it's a Saturday and a Sunday.
It's
like
a 48-hour movie or something.
Maybe
Yeah.
early Monday, which is another way it's sort of similar in a way to Gone in 60 Seconds, right? Because it's just like a very tight, compressed timeline window. Very early in the guarding of him, not when Bullitt is there, but when one of the other men is there, these two hitmen come in and they kill the guy. Or they shoot him and they mortally wound him and he dies.
Well, it's
later
kind
in
of
the
weird
hospital.
though. The guy, they're like, these guys want to come up, and so he calls Bullitt.
Well, because they say like that's the senator, right? The senator's like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
But it's not the senator. They're just saying it's the senator's name.
He calls Bullitt, and Bullitt's like, the senator at 1 a.m.? Like, I don't think so, dude. Like, don't let him in. You see the guy, like, had gone over to the door and, like, unlocked it to let them in.
So here's the confusing thing, and I want to suss this out. Maybe I just either missed something or I need to watch it again or something. But in the end, we find out that the guy in the room was not the actual guy. That it was
Yes.
a doppelganger. That it was this other guy. So that the mobster who had stolen the money basically partners up with this guy. Has this other guy go to the senator and is like, "Hey, yeah, this is me. Wink, wink. I'm gonna get out of the country, right?" And so
Yes.
I don't know if the guy was under the wrong impression that this was going to be like he was going to get rescued. I'm not sure why he unlocks it, but that's why
So I think the guy that was the mobster, Ross, right, comes up and he's like, trade identities with me. He might have told this guy that he got into some trouble and he was like being held to testify against the mob. And he's like, look, switch places with me. I'll get some guys to come rescue you. I'll take your identity. You take my identity. You get some money about this. Because the guy comes in and he unlocks the door for them, and when they shoot the cop, he's like, cool, you don't have to shoot me, that's not how this is supposed to go. He says something along these lines when he's standing on the bed, like backing up from him, and they kill him anyways. In reality, that guy had stolen a bunch of money from the mob. The mob were like, fuck this guy, you're involved anyways.
And so these two hitmen that they hire are probably local guys, right? And they don't know what this guy looks like.
No, I think they probably sent him in from Chicago,
You
but
think
even
so?
still. Yeah, but they were like, we don't give a fuck who this guy actually is. Like, we're gonna kill anybody involved in this.
Because I'm just
I don't
wondering.
think that they're local guys.
Yeah, I
Do
guess
you think
because
that they're local guys?
because if they're close to him, they're gonna know like, oh, this isn't the guy, and like, it doesn't seem like they kill him with any kind of what's the word? I don't- like,
Hesitation?
yeah, like it's just like, oh no, we're gonna like. It feels like, and I guess it ultimately doesn't matter, right? But it doesn't feel like it's somebody who's close to the outfit because it's just like there's a guy, he's 5'8" or whatever with brown hair, kill him.
Like, you'll
right?
kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They maybe have a picture and like, yeah, that's the guy, whatever, because he's in this room, blah, blah, blah. I'm just wondering what the guy that he swapped, like, because, it makes sense what you're saying is that they're like, okay, I
He
stole.
scammed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, how is he going to get out of it? Like, you were saying, when we talked about Two-Lane Blacktop. No, wait, we were talking about, sorry. We were talking about Hector, because, of course, we're always talking about Hector. We were talking about
Yeah.
Hector, and, like, if somebody gives you, like, $2,000 tip just to buy parts or whatever, you're not going to ask questions. Like, this guy is like, it's like, okay, pay $2,000, pretend you're me for a weekend, but then when the weekend's over and it's not him, then what? Like, how does this like random, doppelganger get out of this?
I think that he was like, I'm going to send 2 mob guys to come save you, knowing that 2 mob guys were looking for him to murder him. You know, like
Wait.
he's like, oh, I'm gonna send 2 mob guys to come save you. Like if anybody comes looking for you, like those are my men. So they're gonna get you out of this.
No, I don't think that he sent the guy to kill him, or did he?
No, no, the mob was already on the first guy, Ross.
Right.
He knew this. He go finds another guy that looks like him. He's like, I'm gonna give you some money. We're gonna go because like I have to be a witness. I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna escape. You're gonna be in my place. I'm gonna send 2 mob guys to break you out. They're not gonna know it was me.
Okay, yeah,
They're
yeah,
not
yeah.
gonna know it was you because like it's my name, but it was your face. And like the 2 guys will get you out. You'll get out of this, no problem. Here's some money. But what was really happening was Ross knew that 2 mob guys were after him to kill him,
Which is
and
why
he's
they
like,
knew
you know,
where he was, knew all the names and everything like that.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay,
exactly.
that makes sense. So then the outfit in Chicago never actually sends people, or do they?
No, they did. Those 2 guys were sent to like kill Ross because they're pissed at him for stealing all the money from the mob.
And people who understand this movie are probably like screaming right now. But so there's 2 sets of hitmen, or there's just the 1 set of hitmen?
There's 1 set of hitmen. Ross knew that they were on his tail. The 2 hitmen were gonna come kill him. He just convinces this guy that those are gonna be his boys breaking him out. That's what I'm thinking is happening.
Because I think it almost makes more sense, and this might not be right, is that if there's no hitmen at, like, I guess there should be hitmen after him, like, from the official outfit, but it would almost
Yes.
make more sense if there was no first set, then the only set were the ones that Ross hired.
Oh.
Like, that makes sense. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it's not
No,
like...
that makes sense too. I get that because they also say later. Bullitt says later that like he killed his wife too.
I think that's also part of the perfect plan, right? Is that, like,
Yeah,
oh, like, the guy, he was wanted by the outfit, so that's why he got gunned down.
and he was gonna turn state's witness. The outfit's only gonna hear that this guy died. They're not
Right.
gonna know who it actually was. That's a good point. I like that too. Yeah,
So
we
I don't
got
think there's
there.
a second set at all. I think it's just the 1 set that, like,
I thought it was one
that-
set, but I thought it was 1 set from the mob. You think it's 1 set from?
I think it's just 1
from
set
Ross.
from Ross that he goes, like,
Yep.
he basically he escapes, and he has, he's got like a little bit of window, right? For those 10 seconds he's free. And he goes out
Yep.
to California, and he knows that that the outfit's going to catch up to him eventually. But he's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I've got a plan. I'm going to get out of the country, but to do that, I'm going to make everybody think I'm dead by finding a doppelganger, bribing him, saying, I'm going to get you out of here, but I just need you to, like, sort of be my bait for a little bit. He just kills him and goes from there.
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense. I'm
Okay.
with you.
Whether or not that's
We got
what
there.
actually happens, because I read the Wikipedia plot summary, and it's like it doesn't really truly break down the plan. And I guess maybe
No.
it's not the point. It's just
No.
like we thought it was the one guy, and then Bullitt realizes it's the other guy, and then that's when the chase happens at the end of the airport.
Yeah.
I guess it's not really concerned with the why as much as the how and
The
what.
unfolding.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is a long way around to the reason I first brought it up in the first place was that one of the hitmen, the guy that what they used to kill not Ross and shoot the detective and
Okay.
me, is a pump action shotgun. And I was like, oh,
Yes.
truck driver, first movie, shoots Vince with a shotgun.
Oh, that's true. That's a very good Fastnection. I don't think the truck driver separates and hides in his jacket like the one
Probably
in
not.
Bullitt does. But yeah, that is a good point. Shotgun.
And then I wrote down that was something we mentioned earlier, that Bullitt is distrustful of the government, of Senator Chalmers, and then Senator Chalmers is like, I'm gonna hold you accountable for this death and whatever. And so it's like basically cop against the man, kind of, and the man against the cop, even though they should be on the same side. And it's just, once again, it's Brian, his inability to get out of his own way.
That's like a really interesting thing for this movie that like he's so distrusting of the senator. Why is the senator running around like a detective in this movie? Do we know?
Wikipedia calls him just like an overly ambitious. I think he just can't help it. He wants to micromanage. He's like, I like, this is my case. Like, I need this to go. Maybe if he gets this, he can become
because he
governor. He
mentions-
can become whatever. He can become president. Who knows?
That's
He-
right.
He needs this to go smoothly, and I think he's like literally like, just don't, like, it's 48 hours. Like, don't fuck up, please. Like, it's not that hard. Please.
And
do
he
not screw
mentions
this
to
up
him
for
when
me.
he's at his house, like, this is franchise Viagra for a detective, right? Like, he says something along these lines, like, everybody will move up if this goes through, and, like, if we can get this done, like, it's going to be great for all of us, and our careers will be better, and stuff like that.
Because he knows this is a big case. It's like, I'm going to
Yeah.
be the man who took down the Chicago mob, even though I'm in San Francisco. I don't understand how. I don't know how that case gets tried. You
It's
know
a
what I mean?
federal case?
But it's also, then why is a senator in California do? It's just like, why is it not like a federal court? I don't know. It just maybe I just don't understand politics. I don't know. But it feels like this is going to be like, this is the case of a lifetime, right? Like, he needs everything to go
Yep.
smooth, which is also like, why is he staying at this like dumpy motel? Why is they not like at a better location? Why is it just one guy on duty? Like, there's a lot of things here that are like, oh, you should have been a little bit more meticulous if it's really that important.
Yeah, true.
After everything breaks bad in the hotel, we get transferred to the hospital, and then there's the killer who goes there to basically finish the job in the hospital.
Because he's trying to kill the cop. He's not
Yes.
trying to kill the guy, right? The guy is already dead. He got shot in the neck. He's done.
I think he's there, and I don't know that for sure, but I think he's there to finish the guy off because he knows that he didn't die.
Okay. Okay.
Because that's when they're like, how is it? And he's like, it's 50-50, it's not good. Like, they're basically like, the cop's going to be fine. He just got shot in the knee. Like, that's fine. But, like, the other guy's not sure, and then the guy dies. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I think he's
Okay,
basically
that's-
there. He's just basically being like, we need to make sure that we cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Maybe it's also for the cop, but he's basically, I'm finishing up unfinished business, right? Like, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, which again, double tap, I don't know, just do something. Because I think if he wanted to kill the cop, he would have killed the cop, right? Like,
You're right. Yeah, that's a good point. Like he shot him in the knee. You know, assumed paid trained assassins,
Yeah.
right? Like they're pros at this. He shoots him in the knee. You're right. If he wanted to kill the cop, he'd kill the cop. And also, killing a cop is like very, very bad,
right.
as opposed to shooting him in the knee and killing the witness.
Although I don't know why you don't shoot the witness a second time unless they want to get out of there quickly, but it also feels like nobody's there. Like, they're in a dumpy hotel where ostensibly people wouldn't really be. Nobody's comfortable around gunshots, but it feels like the kind of like the way that it describes the kind of hotel where like people mind their own business because everybody's doing something illegal there.
Which is funny because this is like in the Embarcadero, like on the pier. Like you've been to San Francisco?
When I drove cross country, I drove through, sort of found a spot near the Golden Gate Bridge, took a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge at night, and then left. Like, I was in San Francisco for like 25 minutes.
Now, if you go through like the Embarcadero, it's like poppin'. You're on the fucking bay, right? So like this is like the most expensive, lucrative real estate you can have. Like there's no dumpy hotels there. It's now like a big tourist spot.
Right.
Which was really funny for me because like I've been there and like stayed in hotels along there. It's a really like nice, expensive place, and there's like all kinds of restaurants and stuff like that. But like to see it here, where there's like just a pier but like no cars and like a dumpy hotel was really funny to me because like now it's like a very, very busy part of the city. So it was interesting.
And in that regard, I thought it was funny at the end of the movie when they're basically doing like modern TSA checks, or they're like checking passports at the airport
Oh, God.
because they're looking for a guy. But it's like, otherwise you'd be like, yep, get on the plane. All right, you just get on the plane. But here they're like, okay, yes, you're him. Okay, cool, you're him, because they're looking for the
Dude.
guy. But I was just like, it's funny to see like a modern thing that at the time was like, well, why are they doing this?
I was laughing with Rachel that like Bullitt notices that he's not on the plane to Rome as he had a ticket for, and he like looks up at the board and goes, "Hey, is there a guy on the plane to London?" They're like, "Yeah, he used his ticket from Rome to get on the plane to London." And I was like, can you imagine like trying to do that now? You're in the airport, you're like at the gate, and you're like, now change that. Like,
and the only
what
thing maybe less believable than that is that when they make the plane take a U-turn, they're like, all right, coming back to the gate, and everybody just like files off like without complaining. It's just like, if that happened today, people would be like, what the fuck is going, like, why am I not going where I'm supposed to be going? Because of this asshole? Like, people would be furious. And here they're just like, all right, we'll be back on soon. Do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah, it was such a strange experience to see that. I was like, wow, there's so much chaos going on in this airport. Like he's like where's this guy at? And they're like, oh, he's getting on a plane to Rome. They're like, okay, and they just like leave, and they don't even like show their badges because obviously you don't need to like show your like ticket to get into the. There's no TSA to get you through. There's no like check. He just like walks straight to the gate.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, this is also weird.
With a gun.
Yeah, with a gun. Nobody checked anything. And they were like outside at one point, which I thought was really weird.
Yeah.
Like he like walks outside and I'm like, you could just like stare at these planes? Like this is so strange to me.
When they're in the hospital, though, I was reminded of Elle Driver when she's trying to kill the bride in the first Kill Bill, where she's just like got the needle. I mean, this is just like an old bald guy like with gray hair or whatever. You know what I mean? Just like he's not exactly Elle Driver. He's not trying to blend in, but I was just like he's like hiding around like this like big like looks like a syringe. I was like, oh, little not Tarantino-esque. Although I did make a note that in the trivia, this is director John Woo's favorite film and William Friedkin's favorite film, and it inspired them to make movies like Hard Boiled, The French Connection, Jade, and To Live and Die in L.A. So like this movie is very not only well regarded and it was like a box office hit and all this different stuff, but like it's influential in inspiring other people to basically make movies about San Francisco, make movies about California, make movies about car chases, whatever. And so,
Yep.
This is a movie that filmmakers, like film guys, we were talking about in the opening segment about doing cocaine with Quentin Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson. Like, it's those kind of guys that are like, oh, you want to know a real movie, man? You want to know a real movie? Let's talk about Bullitt, man. Let's talk about Bullitt.
I can definitely see Tarantino stealing the El Driver needle thing straight from this movie. I mean, he's like a giant poacher, so
Yep.
I can definitely see him being like, well, it's just going to look just like Bullitt, but it's going to be a blonde woman in a nurse's costume. Like, it's the same thing, though.
I don't know if I said it on this podcast or another one that we've done or one with Mike, but there was a series, I'm sure it's still available online, called Everything is a Remix, and they talked about how basically there's no new stories and everything is cribbed and copied from
It's
other
like
things.
music, yeah.
Same thing with music. I think it maybe originally started as music, but there's a whole mini series, like a spin-off series about Quentin Tarantino, and basically about like how there's a difference between copying and paying homage and like doing things wrong and doing things
There is.
well, and like
Yes, I
it's
agree.
all complimentary to him. But it's just like, if you're interested, if you ever like, you can watch old movies, you're like, oh, this is that one scene in Kill Bill, or like there's Lady Snowblood, which we did for the film club a couple years ago or whatever, right? And
Yep.
like the fight between the bride and Oren Ishii, it's that scene. He just took an entire scene,
Oh, totally.
put it in
yeah.
his movie, and it's like it just with his characters. Like it's the same, but like it's like lovingly done, and like you can use it as a thing to make fun of him, or like if you don't like him, you'd be like, look, the guy's not even making his own movie. But if you're about it, you'd be like, oh, that's cool. Like I know where that's from. I see what he's doing here. It's working beautifully. The Crazy 88's like that whole fight scene is lifted from something else too, and so it's cool. So check out Everything as a Remix. There's a whole thing on Tarantino there, so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like all those homage things, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's the king of them. He just like is poaching all of his fun stuff from everything else.
At one point in this movie, they go to a car wash, and I was like, how have we not had a car wash in the Fast and Furious movie? I don't know what they would do there, but like it feels like we should have been at one.
I feel like these kind of feel like guys that are hand wash only.
True, that's true. Yeah.
Self garage, hand wash only is what the kind of guys that they feel like. They have too many stickers and decals. They don't want to go through the manual, like the automatic wash. I think that's probably why. But at the same time, like, Tej didn't have a car wash at some point. You know what I mean? It's weird. You're right. No gas stations and no car washes.
Yeah.
All of our cars are just beautiful all the time and full
Yeah.
of gas.
And then we get to the scene in the movie, which is the car chase. Because this movie is so compressed over time, like, not a ton happens. Like, it's basically just kind of like hard-boiled
really
detective
yeah.
work, right? It's Bullitt tracking
Yeah.
down leads and trying to find who these guys are, and basically trying to figure out, like, what happened, how things broke so bad.
Yeah, I expected it to be more dense than it was, and it's not.
No.
It's very like
It's
upper,
also
like
very slow.
top layer. I mean, it's long in old movie standards, but not super long according to today.
It's like like an hour 55, hour 56 or something like that. It's good. I mean, it's well paced. It's just that like, there's scenes that just like, oh, like it just feels like there's like room to breathe in a way that movies today
I know.
wouldn't be. And I'm like, oh, like this just feels different.
It's so luxurious. I'm so comfortable here. Yeah, no, it's shot like there's definitely lots of times that like they'll take like liberties with like the camera angle and stuff like that and like make it look pretty in a way that we wouldn't get today without like a very distinct reasoning. Either we get like Nicholas Wine and Refn that's just like all beauty, no substance. I mean, well, like a lot more beauty than substance. Or we get like a lot of like action and like no beauty. This is like, you know what, we're going to tell like a slower story, but we're going to spread it out to really like let you breathe in this, and it feels nice.
Because this feels like the kind of story that you could tell in like an hour-long drama. Like this could be like an episode of like, not CSI, but something like that.
Like
You know what I mean?
Chips. Yeah, just something.
Yes.
Not Chips, but
Chips.
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Actually, they're in California. Might as well be Chips.
It might as well be Chips.
Yeah.
Miami Vice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get to the car chase, which is very cool. Bullitt notices that there's a Dodge Charger tailing him, and so he manages to basically get behind them.
Say it.
What?
The Dodge Charger, that's Dom's car, man.
Oh, yes, of course. I was like, I don't know where you're, but yeah. So there's the Mustang
That's the
and the Charger.
Fastnection.
Yeah.
It's Dom's Charger. Well, I mean, it's not Dom's Charger. I think this one's a little bit older than the one that Dom has.
Yeah, like he notices that this car's been following him, and so he like basically pulls out and pulls around and gets behind them, and like they're just trying to like.
That's such a
suss him out.
badass scene too. That's like one of the coolest parts of the whole scene. That they're following him and he like makes a left, makes a right, and they like kind of lose him, and he just looks in his rear view, and the shot of like the camera looking in the rear view, and you see the Mustang behind him like run, 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 and you're like, oh, that is so cool. Like that really got me going.
My favorite moment in this movie, or my favorite moment in just about any movie that I've seen in a while, is like when the chase begins and the score drops out and the engine just guns it. I was like, oh hell yeah! And they hook that hard left turn, and then he tries to go after them, and he sort of gets stopped by the cars and follows after them. But like, just
Yep.
that going from a movie to like, oh no, we're in a car chase now. And like we talked about it with Two
Yes.
Lane Blacktop, we talked about it like Refn did it with Drive. It just, oh no, we're going to use the sounds of the car. And apparently in the original version of the movie, or at some earlier version of the script, not only was the car chase not in the movie, and I'll talk about that later, but
What?
they added that.
Whoa.
I know, crazy.
Okay.
But
Go
they
ahead.
wanted to score the car chase, and Lalo Schifrin, who did the music, was just like, no, 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 like the sound is good enough on its own. Like I don't want to do the score here. Like that feels like a mistake, because the guy who composed the movie basically saying like, no, like let's let this stand on its own. It feels like incredible, and I think they use it again at the
Yep.
end. And I don't know that like the chase through the airport, the chase through the tarmac, especially like the one-on-one, like the foot chase, after you have this chase in the middle of the movie, like that can't hold up, right? Like it's not as exciting.
No, I felt that exact same way, dude. I was like, how does that not the end of the movie is this car chase?
Right.
It feels really disjointed that like this really badass part in the middle of the movie happens, and you're like, God, that was mind blowing. And I'm still thinking back on that as I'm watching the rest of the movie, and I'm like, oh man, it kind of distracts me from the real end of the movie in a weird way.
Especially because the end of the movie, that second chase, they try to do the same thing, I think, where there's no score. Just like, we're going to use the natural sounds. And it's like, well, you did this before and it was better. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like they're like, oh, we did that one thing, like, let's do it again because it was super cool. But it's like, well, do something different. Or like, I don't know.
Them running through the runway and the plane sounds are definitely not as cool as the engines just like roaring at each other the whole time.
There was an episode of Futurama called Bendin' in the Wind, and it's where Bender.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Futurama?
I mean, I've seen a lot of different episodes,
Okay.
but it's much like The Simpsons to me, where like I wouldn't know an episode if you told me it.
Right.
But I know all the
But, like,
characters.
you know the
I know
characters.
the.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yes.
Bender joins Beck's band.
Who's Beck though?
Beck is the musical artist, like the actual performer.
Oh, actual Beck. Okay.
Beck, yeah.
Okay.
One of my favorite jokes in the episode is that, they have the Bectionary, because Beck just makes up a lot of weird words in his songs, and then Bender's
Yes.
like, no, the rhyming Bectionary. But one summer between years of college, I think it was either high school or college, I think it was college, when I didn't have a job, I watched all 4 seasons of Futurama on DVD, and then I watched all of them with commentary. And so, like, I just soaked in, like, I just loved that show, and I soaked in so much information.
I really like that show too. Yeah.
And one of the episodes is Bendin' in the Wind. They were talking about this movie because there's a car chase in that episode. It references Bullitt. It's at the end of that, and like it's referencing Bullitt. But like what they pointed out in the commentary, as they're going through the streets of like New San Francisco or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's all like hover cars and everything. There's like this green Volkswagen Bug that keeps showing up, and they're like, if you see that, that's referencing Bullitt. And I was like, so in my brain somewhere, I was like, okay, green Bug in Bullitt. And so when you're watching the chase scene, I don't know if you noticed, I don't know if you read or if you knew about this, but they pass a Volkswagen Bug 3 or 4 times as they're going down, like they're basically the same street, but they keep passing the same bug. I don't know if it was a joke or if it was like they were just like a goof, or if they were just using the same, they didn't have very many cars, but like in the span of like 45 seconds, like 3 shots coming down the same steep downhill street, they passed the same Volkswagen Bug 3 times.
No, I didn't notice it. I mean, like now that you say it, it kind of makes sense in my head, but I didn't notice it at the time. That's really funny.
And there's some other car that I think they passed twice. Like there's a white something or other that they passed twice. But like in my head, I was like, okay, Volkswagen Bug, because in this Futurama chase, like they'll like go through the scene, and then like all of a sudden, just like a bug will just like come on screen and just like park there. It's just like they're alluding to that. But here, like the bug's just like driving slowly down the street, and then the car's like zooming past it.
Go
So I just thought
around
it was
him.
funny that I finally had the context for like this reference that's been in my brain for like 15 years. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah, that's
oh,
really
okay.
awesome. That's really awesome.
Like the chase is incredible from start to finish, and then the fact that like it sort of ends so abruptly with like them just blowing up on that
Yeah.
like gas station or whatever. Like it's just like, oh shit, or like not the gas station, but like they veer off the road and they just like hit something and the car blows
It
up.
looks like a gas station to me. I thought it was a gas station. I think it is. But yeah, it just like ends, and then he like cuts the wheel, almost goes into a ditch, and is like, nah, and then just like is fine.
Yeah. I had another really big, and I don't know if this is like a stretch. I don't think it's a stretch, but I had another big Fastnection. The scene
Tell me.
after that is that like when he's with his, so like his car gets fucked up or whatever, like he needs a lift from his girlfriend down to San Mateo where they're like investigating the girl because they're like the clues are
Yes.
starting to come together, right? And she
So she
basically
comes,
says,
gets him in the yellow Porsche. Yeah.
yes. And she's saying to him, he's addicted to the violence. She's like worried about him. She doesn't know if she can go on. And I remember, like, I think it's in seven, 6 or 7, when Mia is talking to Brian, and she's like, "Do you miss the street races? Do you miss the women? Do you miss the cars?" He's like, "No, I miss the blood and the bullets." And it's like, I don't miss, the women. It's just like I need the action. It feels like that's another direct connection to this character. Like you're addicted to the thrill of it all, the danger of it all, right? Like it just,
Yeah.
that's another way that they're very closely knit, closely tied.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good point. And I think that both Bullitt and Brian are addicted to the life. Like they just need the thrill of it, right? Like that's what they're chasing. They're just chasing the adrenaline. So yeah, I can see it. I agree with you.
And the girlfriends are both brunette. I mean, they're not like we don't know the girlfriend much at all. Like she's like an architect or something, right? Like we don't know her like we know Mia, but it's just like I think it's that they're similar archetypes in that they're like they're loving and they're protective, but they're also scared, right? Which I guess is kind of sort of shallow, sort of shitty characterization, but
No,
we know
but
Mia a lot
they're
better.
loyal.
Yeah.
They're dependable. Those are good qualities. But shitty, yeah. There's other shitty archetypes in there too.
When they're waiting, like when the big reveal comes through that they're waiting for the passport application, right? They're like standing around the teletype, the copy typer, or whatever they call it, right? And
Yes.
it comes through. I was like, that's literally from Fast and Furious 4.
Oh yeah.
It's like which one's Braga, which one's Braga, and they like wait for it to come through. Like it's the same thing. It's
Yep.
just like, but it's not to the same, I guess, dramatic effect because they're about to arrest one guy and let the other guy go. Like it's not that, but it's the same. Like we're literally waiting for a face to print out so we know who to arrest. And it's like, oh, it's the same thing.
Yep, it's the exact same thing. The teletype thing in this movie was really cool. This wasn't exactly the same because Bullet the whole time knows that it's not him, right? He's just getting it to show them that like I was right. They're not all waiting to discover who the real person is, right? He's like, yeah, it's not the guy. And he just like pretty much looks at it and like hands it off, right? Like
Yep.
he's like, here, this is like what I was trying to fucking tell you the whole time, you dumbasses. And like that's what happens, which is like a really badass move too, by the way. The teletype thing is interesting, and I want to see one of those or play with one of those because did you see how it works?
Sort of. I was also looking up the teletype because the word fax, like a fax machine, comes from facsimile because it's like copying. It's literally copying.
At one point, because I've never seen one of these, I had no idea what it was. Like at one point at the end, he takes the phone off of the top of it. There's like a place that you put a phone on the top of it, and somehow like the phone sounds, I'm guessing, tell you what to print on the thing. So it's like a very strange pre-internet, very infant in an internet type thing that was like very cool to me because he has like a hook like on the top that you like hang like, so I'm guessing you call something and like, or something calls you
And
and
it's
you just
like
take
Morse
the phone.
code almost. Like it's just like
Yeah.
vibrations.
Yeah, and it like you put the phone on the top of the thing and then it's like okay, and then the machine translate like what the sounds are into like where to print stuff. And I can imagine so much shit going wrong with that. Can you imagine if we had one of these back in the day? Whew. Chain mail. There was all of these texts from my cousin's sister that works in the government. You start getting the like, motherfucker, you're clogging my teletype again
Have
with
you?
your bullshit.
Did you watch McMillions on HBO? Do you know about McMillions?
No, I have no idea what this is.
So it is the McDonald's scam, which was like they broke this I think on Slate or something a couple years ago. But the McDonald's Monopoly scam, like the Monopoly game was rigged, and so there was like this whole story about like that, like basically showed how it happened. And so there's a 6-part HBO miniseries doc series that came out.
I
This
want to
year.
see it.
I'm gonna hint at something without
Don't-
spoiling
yeah.
anything. So also,
Okay,
like,
don't spoil it for
the
me.
first hour is great, and then it never really quite captures the rest. Like the rest of it, like it shouldn't be 6 hours long. Basically, it should be like 2 hours.
Okay.
So
okay.
it's good. It's not great, but there is a thing with a fax machine that I won't say any more about. That is like a colossal fuck up. That's just like, oh no. But like it's even modern-ish day, like year 2000. It's just like, oh, we're still not good with technology.
Yeah. I want to watch this. That sounds very fascinating to me. And as you know, we're in lockdown, so I need more things to watch.
True.
So yeah, that's why I don't want you to spoil it. Normally I would have been like, oh, tell me about it. I'll watch it anyways. But at this point, I'm like,
Yep.
6 hours sounds like a fucking blessing to me.
And then also in terms of the facsimile here, in terms of the doppelgangers, like we've been talking about this a lot lately. We really haven't had doppelgangers. I mean, we have to your point, Jacob is kind of evil Dom, but like in terms of lookalikes,
Yeah.
we haven't really had that yet. So like this is something again that Fast and
No,
Furious
we
could take from
did.
this.
Are you kidding me? In 6, we have the whole lineup that these are bizarro people.
Oh,
this is
that's
a
true. That
blonde
is true.
Brian. This looks like me.
I guess
he's a less handsome me.
Yeah, I guess that's more in terms of like what we were talking about with the opening, when Wes saying comparing this to the MCU, it's not done for narrative misdirection, but sort of like a look at that like it's
That's
basically
fair.
us, right? Like I
I
think
can agree with that.
my
yes.
brain didn't go that direction, but you're right that we have had the hey look, the pretty blonde is Brian even though she's a woman, right? So
Yep.
yeah, so they have done it, but they haven't done it like somebody like there's I guess the one time they did do it is in the beginning of 6 when there's the bald guy that Hobbs goes in to interrogate. You think it's Dom, but it's not Dom. Right?
Yes,
so,
you think it's Dom until he turns around. Yeah.
so I guess they have done it. Never mind. You're right.
Sorry.
They
No, I
have
wasn't
taken
trying.
everything from
I
this
wasn't
movie.
even trying to be right. I was just saying, like, I remember a couple, like at least one of these. So
Then, of course, at the end, when there is the chase at the airport, I was like, world's longest runway. It's good that they had the world's longest runway that, that he could dive under the plane, which I thought was kind of cool.
how do they keep running? How do they keep running under the? First of all, I looked at Rachel when we were watching this, and I was like, "Can you imagine somebody trying to run on the runway right now? Like, I mean,
You
just
would-
in
you would be
general,
shocked.
like
there's
post
gotta be a guy with
9/11,
a rifle, right? Like, there's got to be, like, in a
Yeah.
tower somewhere, there's got to be someone with a sniper rifle just,
like shoot on sight.
Yeah.
Like this guy's dead.
Yep.
Like, okay, so that's step one. But the other thing was, is they like run under and in front of planes. And like the pilots don't even stop. They're like, "Oh, guy on the runway again," and they just keep driving the plane. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, because at this point now, post 9/11, if like, I'm sure if a pilot saw a guy on the runway, they'd be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And like, just stop everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, the whole airport would shut down. Like, these guys see a guy on the runway, they're like, check their watch. They're like, we're not going to make it if we don't get going here.
It's like we're driving, there's a squirrel, just like, I really hope that we don't hit that squirrel. Like, we're gonna kind of steer out of the way a little bit, but like, we're not going to be any worse for wearing this.
Yeah.
And then at the end, like when the guy jumps out the back of the plane, like I didn't know you could just open those doors and like how he falls basically. They
can.
both jump like 20 feet and like don't even hobble away. They're just like, all right, we're good. It's like, what?
Yeah, so the first guy jumps, and I'm like, ow, God. Like, Rachel's like, his ankles. And I'm like, yeah, that really had to hurt his knees or something. And then Steve McQueen just jumps down and just, like, hits.
Yep.
Like, doesn't tumble, doesn't stop anything. And they're both, like, the one guy's in a suit with dress shoes on.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the fuck?
Yep.
Like, you guys would get murdered here. Like, they must seriously have, like, bad knee problems for, like, the rest of their lives.
Well, I mean, the rest of the one guy's life is 20 minutes, right? It's just like, oh no, like he's...
Well, no, I mean, like, in his real life.
Oh.
Like, whoever did that stunt is, like, they didn't even do, like, I expected them to do the jump and the tumble, right? Like, you do the parkour kind of, like, hit it and like, roll so
Yeah.
you don't, like, impact as much. No, they hit dead on, and they're just, like, stop and keep running.
True. And I have some trivia about, not about that, but about the stunt driving and stuff that I'll get to in a little bit, but...
I knew that trivia. Go ahead, but I want to hear it.
No,
from
we'll
you.
get to that when I get to that, because I have a bunch that I'm going to go through.
Okay.
But anything else? Because, I mean, we then, they chase him back to the airport, there's the shots, and then the senator comes in, sees the guy dead on the ground, and just doesn't say anything, and then, Bullitt goes home, his girlfriend is still there, nobody's really the
What
worse
is the
for wear.
significance of that? That she was just concerned with his bloodlust?
I think she's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, basically.
Okay, but then she's there, so he's like, yeah, she can.
Yeah.
And just, cool.
So basically, at the end of the weekend, where like basically everything went wrong, everything's the same. That his girlfriend's still there. The senator doesn't get mad at him because the senator knows that like a lot of things broke bad, right? And like
Yeah.
he just had a bad weekend.
Which is really weird. I mean, he actually had a really great weekend. Like, he did good personally.
Sure.
Everybody else just didn't believe in him enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anything else that you have? Any other thoughts? Any other Fastnections that you have to the movie before I hit you with a bunch of trivia?
You nailed a whole bunch of the ones that I wanted to talk about, but let me see if I have any more in my notes just real quick. The only other thing about the movie that I really, really enjoyed was that they're laying in bed, and he gets the phone call, and he's like, yeah, okay, whatever, and, like, hangs up the phone. She's like, who was it? He was like, go to sleep. It's not for you, baby. And just like, she's just like, okay. Like, it's like such like a 60s thing to, he's like, listen, woman, this is man's work, and just hangs up the phone. and she's like
Actually,
totally cool with it.
I didn't think about it like that, but in that regard, it's also very kind of a fast action. Like in the first movie, when Brian wakes up and Mia wakes up next to him, and the guy in the other voice is just like, if you're in, say yeah. He just says yeah, and then he, and then just leaves. Right? It's just again,
Yeah.
don't worry, woman. Like I got this. Like this is just man stuff.
Yeah, I like that. And the other thing that I was really happy about with the movie was that there was a black doctor. And I was really excited when I saw a black doctor because I was like, this is an old movie. So, like, to have, like, a young black surgeon, like, that's really cool. And then the guy comes in, like, immediately afterwards and it's like, can you get rid of this black doctor for us?
And you hear the
He's
nurse is like, nurse is like, he's kind of our best doctor, and she's like, I'll try my best. I'll get rid of him.
yeah. And then they, like, and he keeps coming in like, why is this doctor still here?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, guys, I get it. Like, I was really stoked when I first saw him. I was like, oh, this is dope. Like, man, look at how progressive and cool this movie is. That
Yep.
they had, like, a black doctor in the 60s. And then, like, he immediately tries to get rid of him. I was like, fair. That's why you had the black doctor. I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So, the governor was just an idiot. He wasn't in on it, right? It's just like he was an idiot.
I think he was just ambitious and like just didn't know what was like he his eyes were bigger than his stomach or whatever, right? Like he didn't.
Okay.
I don't think he was in on it.
Because at the beginning, like near the beginning, Bullitt's trying to like insinuate that he might have given up the witness. Like, who knew he was here besides me and my men?
Well, I think that's also
And
like
you.
I think that goes back to our debate at the beginning of this because I think like how would they know that he was there? And it's because the real Ross told them where to be.
That's true. They try to put it on this guy though at the beginning, like when we don't know it's the real
Right.
Ross yet.
Yeah.
They say that like he called his girlfriend.
Because there's only like two people. It's only like 5 people or whatever, right, who knows that he's there. It's the governor.
Yeah.
It's Ross, and it's the 3 cops. And the
Yep.
cops, like one of the cops got shot, so it's probably not him. It's not Bullitt, unless this movie is like really fucking with us. We don't really
Yeah.
know the other cop. The other guy died, so like that, it's just like by process of elimination, it has to be Ross, even though the real misdirect is that there's a 6th guy who's the actual Ross, right? So
Yeah.
I think based on that elimination, like Bullitt trusting his men, the 5th guy dying, or the 4th guy dying, or whatever, however you want to look at it, the
Yeah.
only guy left is the senator. And so he's like, well, you had to do it, has to be you. And he's
Yep.
like, no, why
Unless
would,
it's somebody else.
right?
Yeah.
But like, why would it be like? Because there's no like, he doesn't come out of this looking good at all. Like, if he's in on it, like, and things go bad, like, he doesn't look good.
That's a good point. Yeah, it just fucks up. Why would he fuck with himself like that,
Right.
right? I thought that this movie was gonna go in a way that like the governor was kind of like in with the mob, and that he had to like make it look like this guy disappeared by accident.
And he was like
Because, like-
manipulating the police to cover his tracks.
Yes, and that he was getting like paid off by the mob. Like he was somehow involved. Like it was like they had dirty money and they're giving it to him. Something.
Yeah, I think that's probably one way that this could have gone. But then I think I think what the movie actually winds up doing is kind of maybe
Much
a little
better.
bit of a stretch, like a doppelganger. Like a doppelganger thing is never like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. It's just kind of like, oh okay, doing that. But I think
It's much better.
It's smarter, yeah.
I agree.
Because then you'd be like, well, why is a California senator in with the Chicago mob? Like that doesn't like it kind of makes sense, but it kind of doesn't. You'd be like, wait, what?
I agree, and that was the end of the movie things that I had in my notes.
Cool. Steve McQueen is often credited with being the stunt driver in the chase scene, but it was both him and Bud Ekins, Ekins, Ekins.
I thought there was a third guy too. There's like one guy that did the jumps, one guy that did the stunt driving, and then Steve McQueen as well.
Maybe, or is there one guy in the other car too?
Maybe it was the guy in the other car. I read that there was a guy that did the jumps, like another stunt driver, and then Steve McQueen.
If that's the case, then this is the guy who did the driving because from
Okay.
the interior shots looking forward inside the Mustang, if you can see the rear view mirror, if you can see his face, it's Steve
Yes.
McQueen. If it's turned in a different direction, it's the stunt driver. So it's like they're not really hiding it. But then there's a scene later in the movie, or later in the chase, I think when they're like the shotguns or whatever, like the Steve McQueen's face is basically like he's driving in a weird way, like his face is right next to the window, and it's like his way of basically saying like, this is me driving, like they're not covering this up. And so he was very cognizant, like he wanted to be like, hey, look, I'm doing this. So kind of
Yes.
Tom Cruise in that way.
Do you know the other part of that story? That part where he like overshoots the turn.
Yes.
Do you know this? And then like has to reverse in that one part. And that's because he was stunt driving and wanted everybody to see that he's the one who's stunt driving at that point, and like overshoots the turn.
He
and
missed the turn, and they like it wasn't
Yeah.
supposed to be in there, but they left it in because it is kind of cool. It's just like because he does like a
It's
hard
really
turn
cool.
and then backs up. Yeah.
It's really, really cool. I liked it a lot.
So 2 Mustangs and 2 Chargers were used for the chase scene. Both Mustangs
Yes.
were owned by Ford, Shout out Ford v Ferrari. It's part of a promotional loan from Warner Brothers, or in agreement with Warner Brothers. The cars were modified by veteran auto racer Max Balchowski.
You know who the modification guy was?
I don't think so.
Steve McQueen's like best man at his wedding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he like was like, oh no, I only trust this dude. Like he'll do the modifications. Very Ford versus Ferrari, right?
Yeah. And also very Dom and Jesse kind of, the mad scientist.
Exactly. So he was like, I need that guy to like hook up the cars. So like they gave him the cars, but he did all the modifications.
Stunt coordinator Carrie Lofton got Bud Eakins to drive the Mustang for most of the stunts, this says. Both Dodges were junked after filming, as was one of the Mustangs. I think the Mustang recently, this year, sold for $3.74 million.
Yes, it sold at Mecum. And January 22nd this year, like a couple months ago.
Yep.
They finally sold it. Do you know the history of this? Can I tell you some like facts off the top of my head?
Go for it.
The Mustang like was in the movie, and then some guy that was like at the studio bought it. Okay, and he was using it as his daily driver.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he would just drive it back and forth to the studio to the point where it has like a Universal. Was it Universal?
I think Warner.
So it has like a Warner like sticker, like lot sticker, like permit tag. This guy was looking online, not looking online. He was like looking, and somebody was selling a '68 Fastback Mustang, and he's like, "Oh, dude, that's like my dream car. I want to buy one." And so he goes and buys it from the guy from Universal. He's like, "Oh, and this is the Bullitt car?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay." So like Universal like makes him like this like bullshit like paperwork that says like, "This is the car from Bullitt. We can prove it. Trust us, Warner." Right? So like he gets this paperwork and he's like sick. And, like he has it, and then his wife is like a school teacher, and she's driving it back and forth to her school. It has like 65,000 miles on it. The clutch blows out, and he throws it in his garage. He's like, fuck it, I'll fix the clutch eventually. It goes to like 2000 now. Like it's like the year 2000 or like 2005 or something. And he's like, "Hey son, do you want to like rebuild the Bullitt car?" And they're like, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." And so like they're like working on it. The dad has like he has some kind of disease. I think it was Parkinson's, but I'm not sure. He gets sick, so they're like, "No." And then he's like, "Okay, come on, like I'm sick. Let's finish this." And they like don't do that either. The dad finally dies. They're like on a farm, like fucking in the middle of nowhere. When he dies, the son's like, "I have to get this car fixed. Like me and my dad were working on it. Like I have to do it." So he goes and gets it like totally redone as close to original as he can, and they still have like the movie like beam in the back of it, like the camera holding things and stuff like that. But his mom was just like driving it around like back and forth to school for like years.
Imagine like just like now a $4 million car that you're just like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the store and pick up groceries. I gotta go to work. I gotta just drive the what will soon be a $4 million car."
He originally paid for the car. Do you know what he paid for the car? Like when he bought it, I don't know what year it was, but
Probably
like after
nothing.
$6,000.
$6,000. Okay, cool.
$6,000 is what he paid for the car, and then his son sells it for $3.7 million. Not
a bad come up.
40 years. Not a bad come up. It's the most expensive Ford Mustang ever sold. By the
Well,
way,
shout out Ford, and thank you. I mean, until we sell our Mustangs, right? So
until we get our two Bullitt, yeah, they'll be the Too Fast two Mustangs. We have to sell them together as a set.
Oh, apparently, this is a while ago, Steve McQueen tried to buy the car. The owner refused to sell it.
Yes, I remember this
a couple
part,
years
too.
ago. And then that was when they introduced the 2018 Bullitt Mustang.
Yeah, actually, they did it before that. Steve McQueen actually tried to buy it from this guy, like, in the 70s or 80s. And the guy's like, "No, man, it's my dream car. Like, I can't sell it." And Steve McQueen's like, "Look, I'll buy the car and buy you another fucking '68 Fastback. Give me the Bullitt car back." And the guy's like, "Can't sell it to you, bud."
Yeah, that's like, like somebody catching a home, like a 3,000th hit or like a 500th
Yeah.
or whatever, and be like, "No, like you're my favorite player. Like I can't. This is all I ever wanted. Like I will give you literally anything you want. Please let me have my history." And they're like, "Nah."
You're like, "This is mine. This was mine." Like how do you not sell it back to Steve McQueen, right?
Yeah.
Like,
speaking of Steve McQueen, he based his character on one of the guys, Dave Tashi, who was famous for his work on the Zodiac killings. And apparently, his custom fast draw shoulder holster, which I think they show him getting into at least once, when he's getting ready for work with his
when she's
lovely
eating
girlfriend.
breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah. So the director wanted the cars to go about 75 to 80 in certain scenes, but they reached well over 110 miles per hour.
Very not a Fastnection, because
No.
they only do like 35.
Right. But 177 kilometers, I think. What's the threshold in Tokyo Drift? Is it like over 180? So they still would go after him.
No, it was I think it was 240, or it was 140 miles an hour. It was like 220, right? I think it's
Okay.
if you do 220, the cops won't stop you.
So it's not fast enough for the cops to stop. Okay.
Yeah.
People people did not want Steve McQueen doing the stunts. Like his wife, like he got into like a minor accident, and his wife like called the director and was just like, "You can't let him
Damn.
do anymore." And so that's when they hired Bud Eakins or whatever. And later, they were like, "How did they not find someone other than Steve McQueen? Like, how did they not get a dummy to do this, like in the car accidents or whatever?" And he wryly replied, "They did," like basically calling himself a dummy for doing this kind of stuff. But
That's a very Brian thing, right? Like I wanna be in the action myself as the actor as well.
yeah. Speaking of his wife, Steve McQueen did not want to do this movie because he apparently had a lot of run-ins with cops when he was a young man. But his wife was like, "No, you need to do this movie," and so like it worked
That's
out.
so badass. Steve McQueen is like super cool.
Yeah.
He exudes cool in this movie. He's not like he's definitely handsome. He has the Brian blue eyes and stuff like that. He's not Brian pretty, right?
Right.
But he's very cool. I think he has like the coolness. Like if you're creating a character, he has like a 9 in cool, and Brian has like a 6, and Brian has like a 9 in pretty, and he has like a 6, right? Like they just changed these things.
And actually, speaking of cool, this is actually a perfect segue, unknowingly. So the cops that Steve McQueen rode around with wanted to test his metal. I guess when he was doing like ride-alongs to like learn what it takes to be a cop, right?
Yeah.
And so they wanted him to test. This is again, I'm reading this verbatim because this is one of my favorite trivia. I mean, it's not like a Zac Efron has the bluest blue eyes or whatever, but like, it's written in
Yeah.
a way that I'm just like, okay. The cops that Steve McQueen rode around with wanted to test his metal, so they took him to a morgue. They had to admit that the star was pretty cool when he showed up eating an apple.
Oh, very Sphinxy, right? Mm-hmm. From Gone in 60 Seconds when he's eating the sandwich in the morgue. That's pretty badass. Yeah, I agree.
It also reminds me of, Brad Pitt in the Ocean's movies. He's always eating.
I'm hungry, Tyrese.
In Always Sunny, they have like a few times in that show they punctuate a joke. Like there's one time where like they open the door and Charlie's like in a full Nazi outfit and he's just eating a banana, because it's like if he's just in a Nazi outfit, like this isn't funny, but like if he's there eating a banana, then it becomes funny. So just like this, just like food tied into just like, oh, like he's in like this, like he's surrounded by death, but he's eating an apple. He's pretty cool.
Shout out Kyle Reinfried, the foodie films man
Foodie
himself.
films. So Bud Eakins, who drove the Mustang, he said also did the motorcycle jump for Steve McQueen in The Great Escape,
Oh, very cool.
which was I think 5 years earlier. And apparently, I think because Steve McQueen, I think he got a lot of shit for not doing the stunts in that movie, which is why he wanted to do a lot of the driving in this movie. I haven't seen that one either, but there's like these breathtaking stunts apparently in that movie that like people thought that he did, and I guess news broke that he didn't or whatever, and so he didn't want to basically like seem, I guess, like less of a man. So like, I'm gonna do this in this movie, right? So, but I think that's just cool. Like Bud Eakins, just like I guess he's the guy, right, in the '60s. So
Yeah.
Bullitt's car is a '68 Ford Mustang 390 GT 2+2 Fastback. And the bad guys drove a '68 Dodge Charger 440 Magnum. Do you want to guess which one had a better quarter-mile speed?
I bet the Charger did.
Charger just barely faster, 13.6
Yeah.
quarter-mile versus a 13.8-second quarter-mile.
The Mustang wouldn't have been the fastest. I don't know at the time if they had. He probably could have got a Shelby Mustang at the same time, because like Eleanor's like a '69 Shelby GT500. So like he could have had a faster one, but it wouldn't have made sense because a cop wouldn't have had a Shelby. You know what I mean? Like these are all things that factor into that. So
Eleanor's
yeah,
a '67 Shelby.
Ooh. Okay, a year earlier then. I thought it was
'67
a year later.
GT500 Shelby Eleanor. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were definitely making Shelby Cobras that were '68s then. Yeah.
Shout out once again.
That's cool.
Ford v Ferrari.
Yeah, that's interesting. Eleanor has to definitely be an homage to this car, right? 1,000%.
Probably.
That's all I was thinking about when I was seeing it. I was like, well, I mean, I was just like, oh, they had to make, because in Gone in 60 Seconds, doesn't he drive down San Francisco and jump it in the same things too?
Oh yeah.
He does like the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like just reshooting this Bullitt scene.
Which is cool.
Yeah, very cool.
So like I said earlier, the film's famous chase scene wasn't originally in the script. In the first draft, Detective Frank Bullitt was a Boston policeman who ate a lot of ice cream and never solved the case.
What?
The book it was based on a book, Mute Witness, and the book had originally been bought with Spencer Tracy in mind, but then when he died, the property fell in the hands of Steve McQueen and a producer who added the chase and changed location to San Francisco.
This would have been a much weirder, different movie if it wouldn't have been Steve McQueen being badass and just bumbly with ice cream.
This is one of the craziest bits of trivia, is that the guy who's driving the Charger is this guy, Bill Hickman. So he's a backup hitman. He's the driver of the Charger. He's just like a stunt driver in real life. Was apparently really good friends with James Dean. And
Okay.
when James Dean died, he was actually following James Dean. Like he was in the car behind him or in front of him or whatever. He was accompanying Dean to a race in Salinas, driving Dean's station wagon and car trailer while Dean drove ahead in his Porsche Spider. So Dean crashed and died, and Bill Hickman, the guy who's driving this other car, is actually the one who took James Dean out of the wreck.
Ugh. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really crazy piece of trivia. Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know James Dean died in a Porsche either, because that's very surreal that Paul Walker died in a Porsche and James Dean died in a Porsche.
And they're similar. I guess, other reasons why they're similar are linked to him. So
Yeah, exactly.
this movie's also kind of, in addition to being one of the first movies, I guess, to film in San Francisco, or, noteworthy movies to film in San Francisco, there's a couple other things that this is kind of like a first. Bonnie and Clyde
Yep.
was made a year before. They used squibs, which are kind of remote detonators to simulate like bullet wounds.
Yes.
But this is one of the first movies to incorporate them with blood packets. So I think instead of just having like, I think you can have like squibs where it just like it blows up, like it just gray kind of like looks like a gunshot, but there's no blood. Like I guess this
Yeah.
with the blood was one of the first ones to do that. People thought this was the
Interesting.
first movie to ever say the word bullshit on screen, but In Cold
Oh.
Blood came out a year before, and that said bullshit first. So, but again, one of the first movies to say bullshit. This is also one of the very first films to be rated by the MPAA. It was rated M, which I guess is probably for mature, but then when it came
Yes.
on DVD and Blu-ray, it was changed to PG, which feels too low because the end of this is wildly bloody, where the guy gets like all shot up and squibbed, right? But like,
Yeah.
hey, man.
They like have to cover his face and shit. That's a very big jump. Like I can see it going down to even PG-13 maybe.
Yeah.
You know,
It
R
should, I don't know if it should
definitely.
be R, but it should at least be PG-13, or I don't know. But yeah, PG is, or maybe it was like when it went on a VHS, because like back in the 80s before PG-13 was a thing, why Raiders and why Ghostbusters are just PG is because they're not R-rated movies, but like they're talking about ghost blowjobs, and there's wild violence of Raiders of the Lost
Yeah.
Ark, right? And like,
Yeah. You know the thing that like this is like the first car chase scene too when we're talking about firsts.
Really?
That's like the whole point of this movie. That's that car chase with like the cameras in the car and you see the driver and the car chase. This was the first movie to do that. Like every other car chase since this movie's come out has done that. Like has stolen this. They were like the first ones to like rig the camera so you see like the driver driving it and the car.
Like that's the kind of thing that when you're watching this in retrospect, you might not realize is as important as it was. But you like, if
Yes.
you watch up to this point, you're like, oh my god. But like, it's just like, oh, this feels modern, right? Which I guess is in itself, 53 years old or 52 years old is like, oh shit.
Yes, that's why it holds up so well. Steve McQueen and like the other guy that like the director or whatever. Before this, you know, they would do the thing where cars would drive 30 miles an hour and they'd speed up the film to make it look like it was going faster, but they were like, no, we're just going to shoot it at 80 miles an hour or 105 or whatever, so it actually is going fast. And like that was another thing that they did in the car chase. So like that's why it's so pivotal to the car chase thing, that like this was like the first modern car chase, and every car chase since has stolen all the things that it did.
Very cool. And actually,
Yeah.
speaking of that car chase, there's a pretty major fuck up. They had like a car that was filled with dummies that they were basically just had like, not people that they wanted to go blow up, right? And like
Yeah.
it tripped a thing early. You see the car blow up and explode, and then they cut to Steve McQueen's car driving by, and the thing's already like exploded. It's because like they had to like do this like creative editing where like it's not perfect, but like they blew all this money. Like it's kind of like the beginning of Tropic Thunder, right? Where like they blow $1 million explosion just because like they get the wrong sign. But like there was a mess up here where the thing exploded early, and so they didn't. I guess they didn't have the budget, or they didn't have the time, or whatever to reset. And so instead, they just like figured out a way to creatively edit to make it seem like less bad. But shout out
Yes.
to Ralph Rosenblum. Oh no, film editor Frank Keller. So Ralph Rosenblum is this guy who wrote about it. But film editor Frank Keller salvaged the near catastrophe with a clever and unusual juxtaposition of images that made the explosion appear to go off on time. So
That's very
just
cool.
edited in a weird way that like otherwise be like, oh, I don't know what to, like we just like this is the end of like our big scene and we messed up.
We fucked
what do
it.
we do?
Yeah.
The last bit of trivia here is another one of my favorite ways that people just the way that it's like written on IMDb, because again, Wes can't get anything approved on IMDb, but like just random teenage girls can get stuff approved. So okay.
Yes.
Upset from seeing Bullitt unmoved by a murder, Bissette's character, who is the girlfriend,
Yes.
leaves the car on Bayshore Freeway. Moving toward the bay from traffic, she picks a flower, seen to be a protected California poppy. Since she's on the state right-of-way, she's committed a misdemeanor in front of her boyfriend, police detective. Penalties are $1,000 and 6 months in jail these days. Hope he didn't notice. Like that last
That was
line, just
great.
hope he didn't notice. Like it's just like I don't why what.
Oh God.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. This movie had a $4 million budget, made more than $42 million at the box office, worldwide hit, smash success, critical success, really popular movie, really well done. It's, as you said, as we talked about, its lineage has passed on to many car movies, including our very own Fast
Yeah,
and
and
Furious
it's
movies.
influenced a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
So this was definitely a good one. I'm glad that I finally sat down and watched it. I'm really glad. I'm thankful that you read me all kinds of fun trivia about it, and I'm glad that I learned a bunch of other trivia about it as well.
It looks like now, if you want to watch The Great Escape, which is the motorcycle, I guess he's in prison or something. It looks like because the poster is him on a motorcycle jumping over a prison fence. It's available
Yeah.
to watch on Prime for free. So if you want to watch that, that's up there now. Since everybody
Well,
needs
everybody that we're talking to has nothing but time.
nothing but
So,
time. Yeah,
Go check out some more Steve McQueen movies.
cool.
It was pretty badass. I don't think I know many Steve McQueen movies, so I would watch some more.
The big one, the one that I had seen before, is Papillon, which is the French word
Okay.
for butterfly, where he plays a prisoner.
Why do I feel like I've seen? I feel like I've seen that one, but I don't know where. Maybe like a film class or something.
And there's another one.
I
of
feel
his
like
that
I've seen it, but I don't
Oh,
know
he was in the
where.
Magnificent Seven, the original one, and he was
Oh, I've
also
seen
in
that,
The
yeah.
Blob, which I mentioned, I think, recently. I don't remember
didn't see
why,
that
other than just because he played Bullitt. But I remember specifically mentioning on this that it's like that 1955-ish, 58, The Blob, 10 years earlier, where he just plays like this very pretty, like he's just like it's his first movie, like just like this high school boy in this town that's being taken over by the Blob. So I watched that last year for
Nice.
the first time. And then, yeah, so the Great Escape, according to Letterboxd, his most popular, the movie with the most action on it in terms of reviews and stuff, is The Great
Yeah.
Escape. It's The Great Escape, Magnificent Seven, Bullitt, and then Papillon.
I liked Magnificent Seven a lot, so that's cool.
Well, Joe, next week, you and I are going to do Fast and Furious number 4. Like we said before, we're going to skip Tokyo Drift again. We're going to put it later in the lap. But we're going to go sort of, to the movie that has a lot in common in weird ways with this movie. We're going to talk about
Yeah,
Fast and
strangely.
Furious.
Yeah, I'm down.
Any other thoughts about Bullitt before we wrap up and say goodbye?
No, I don't even think we really spoiled too much. Like, go watch the movie. It's excellent. And at least go watch the car chase.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can find the 10-minute car chase online somewhere on YouTube or something.
I'm going to search right now. Bullitt Car Chase on YouTube.
I'm sure that somebody has it.
Yeah, the top thing is a 10-minute 19 just says, I don't own any rights to this song nor video. Well, thanks,
Yep.
Cavallero.
Yeah.
The 2019 version, Molly McQueen, maybe his daughter, is in the commercial, I think, or maybe it's like a promotional video or something like that.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But for all things Too Fast, Too Forever, you can go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/TooFastTooForever, or at Too Fast, Too Forever on Twitter and Instagram. Email us, family@cageclub.me. Check out our Patreon page at TooFastTooForever.com. Come back next week for Fast and Furious number 4 as we reboot the franchise. It's weird to do a reboot on what's the third movie instead of the fourth movie, but here we are. That's just the game that we're playing. And check out all 76 episodes now, wherever you find podcasts.
Damn, that's a lot of episodes.
A lot of episodes. I'm Joey Lewandowski,
I'm Joe too.
and we'll see you next time right here on Too Fast, Too Forever. Peace out, you anus.
Penis.